Tonight, we travel back, way back, to a time before history, before words, before comfort. Picture this. Not your bed, but the cold stone of a prehistoric cave. No phone, no heat, no guarantees. Just firelight, the wind outside, and the raw pulse of survival. For the next 24 hours, we're living like our ancestors did, stripped of everything but instinct, community, and the will to make it through the night. Spoiler, you probably won't last long by modern standards. And that's the point. If you enjoy this kind of deep dive, hit like and subscribe only if you mean it. Drop your location and local time in the comments too. I love imagining all of us out there, connected across time and space, gathered around the same ancient fire. Now, dim the lights, turn on a fan for that distant rumble of thunder, and let's begin. Welcome to the cave. Your first sensation is the cold. It's a deep, penetrating cold that has seeped into your very bones through the night. There is no gentle awakening, no gradual stirring as sunlight filters through a bedroom window. You surface from sleep like a diver breaking the surface of icy water, with a gasping, shivering jolt. Your cheek is pressed flat against stone, a slab of ancient, unyielding rock that has served as your mattress. It has none of the give of your memory foam pillow, none of the warmth of your down comforter. It is simply, brutally, there. You can feel the sharp imprint of a stray pebble just below your jaw, a dull ache that promises to be a small, nagging bruise. There is no snooze button to hit, no delaying the inevitable. The only alarm clock here is your body's own screaming protest against the chill. Slowly, you peel yourself away from the stone floor. Your muscles are stiff, joints complaining in a chorus of creaks and pops. A fine layer of damp grit clings to your skin and clothes are what passes for clothes. You are not in your soft cotton pajamas. You are likely clad in some sort of rough-hewn animal hide, stiff and smelling faintly of grease and wood smoke. It provides a degree of insulation, but does little to comfort. As you push yourself up, first to your elbows and then into a sitting position, the cold air attacks every exposed patch of skin. Goosebumps erupt on your arms, and an involuntary shudder racks your entire frame. Now, you take your first real look at your new home. It is not the grand, cathedral-like cavern of movie posters. This is a far more intimate and far more claustrophobic affair. The ceiling is a low, oppressive canopy of rock that hangs just a few feet above your head when you stand. It is a tapestry of muted browns and grays, scarred with fissures and cracks that look like a roadmap to nowhere. For a moment, you let your eyes trace these lines in the dim, pre-dawn light that trickles in from the cave mouth. They spiral and split, an ancient and unreadable text. You might notice, if you look closely, that a wide patch of the ceiling directly above the center of the cave is stained black. Archaeologists would recognize this immediately as the telltale sign of a hearth, a spot where countless fires have been lit over generations, their smoke licking the stone and leaving a permanent signature. It's a hint that you are not the first person to call this place home. A comforting and yet oddly unsettling thought. The air itself is thick, heavy with the scent of damp earth, wet stone, and the unmistakable musk of, well, something else. It's the smell of old smoke, of unwashed bodies, of decay, and of life. It's a primal perfume that your sanitized modern nose has no reference for, and it clings to the back of your throat. A constant, faint draft whispers its way from the entrance, a chilly reminder of the world outside. It carries with it the smell of pine needles and morning dew, a cleaner scent that contrasts sharply with the cave's stale atmosphere. You can hear it too, a low, sighing sound as it snakes around the rock formations. There is no hum of a refrigerator, no drone of distant traffic. The only sounds are this ghostly draft and the frantic thumping of your own heart. Your gaze drifts around the small chamber. There is no furniture, no decor, none of the personal touches that make a space a home. In one corner lies a jumble of stones of varying sizes. In another, a pile of dried leaves and moss, perhaps a failed attempt at the prehistoric equivalent of a mattress. Historians and archaeologists still debate whether these early shelters were permanent, year-round residences or merely seasonal camps, used for a few months before a clan moved on, following the herds or the ripening berries. Looking at this Spartan, gloomy space, you lean towards seasonal. Very, very seasonal. The kind of place you'd book for a single night and then leave a scathing one-star review on ancient TripAdvisor. Cave was damp, drafty, and had a persistent odor of what I can only describe as existential dread. Zero amenities. Would not become a powerful, undeniable need begins to eclipse the cold and the discomfort. Thirst. Your mouth is bone dry. Your tongue thick and sticky. Your body, a machine of water and salt, is sending its first and most urgent signal. You need to drink, and so begins your first real challenge of the day. Water isn't just a tap turn away. It's a resource that must be found, assessed, and retrieved. You crawl towards the cave mouth, the rough stone scraping against your hands and knees. The light is growing, a soft, gray luminescence that slowly unveils the world. As you reach the entrance, you hesitate. Peering out, the world feels vast, alien, and utterly wild. Towering trees, thicker and older than any you've ever seen, form a dense canopy. The undergrowth is a chaotic tangle of ferns, bushes, and strange, unfamiliar plants. There is no manicured lawn, no paved driveway, no friendly neighborhood. There is only the wilderness, raw and untamed. Taking that first step out of the cave feels like stepping off a cliff. Inside, you have shelter. It may be cold and damp, but it is a known quantity. Out there is everything else. But the thirst is a relentless tyrant. It pushes you forward. You move cautiously, your bare feet or hide-wrapped soles testing the ground. Every snap of a twig underfoot sounds like a rifle shot in the profound silence. Your ears, accustomed to the constant din of the modern world, are suddenly supersensory organs, picking up every rustle in the leaves, every chirp of an unseen bird. Your eyes dart from side to side, scanning the trees, the ground, the shadows. Every shape is a potential threat. Is that a strangely shaped rock or a predator crouching in wait? You are no longer at the top of the food chain. Here, you are just another animal, and a soft, slow, and clumsy one at that. Your mission is simple: find water. But the execution is anything but. You might stumble upon a puddle of stagnant rainwater, buzzing with insects and clouded with filth. Your modern brain screams. Giardia, dysentery, cholera, and you wisely back away. You need a source that is moving, something fresh. You begin to walk, your steps uncertain. Your best bet is to listen. The sound of running water, a gurgle, a trickle, a roar. That is the sound of life. And so you tune out everything else, straining to hear that specific music. It is an excruciating process. The forest seems to conspire against you, throwing a symphony of other sounds your way to distract and confuse. Minutes stretch into what feels like an hour. The initial urgency of your thirst has now morphed into a low-grade, persistent panic. What if you can't find any? The thought is so terrifyingly simple, so elemental, that it almost paralyzes you. We are so insulated from this reality. The constant, gnawing uncertainty of securing the most basic necessities. For you, in this moment, it is everything. Finally, you hear it. A faint, silvery trickling sound. You pivot towards it, moving with a renewed sense of purpose. You push through a curtain of ferns, their wet fronds slapping against your face, and there it is. A small stream, no wider than a foot, tumbling over a series of smooth, moss-covered stones. The water is crystal clear, sparkling in the growing light. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. You practically fall to your knees at its edge, plunging your hands into the icy current before scooping the water up and bringing it to your lips. The cold shock makes your teeth ache, but the relief is instantaneous and sublime. It is pure, clean, and tastes of stone and earth. You drink deeply, gulp after gulp, the parched landscape of your throat finally getting its rain. Only when your thirst is completely slaked do you stop, sitting back on your heels and breathing heavily, water dripping from your chin. You have survived your first test. You have found water as the sun finally crests the horizon, casting long, golden shafts of light through the trees. You feel a flicker of triumph, but as you look back in the direction of your cave, you realize you now have a new problem. In your desperate, single-minded search, you weren't paying much attention to where you were going. And now, all the trees look exactly the same. That flicker of triumph from finding water vanishes as quickly as it came, replaced by a cold, sinking feeling that has nothing to do with the morning air. You are lost. In your single-minded, thirst-driven stumble through the woods, you carved a path without memory. Now, as you stand by the life-giving stream, you look back into the dense, monotonous green and realize you have no idea which direction leads back to the cave. A knot of panic tightens in your stomach. Your shelter, your only sanctuary in this terrifyingly immense world, is gone. You briefly consider yelling for help, then remember the only things that might answer are not likely to be offering directions, and might instead see you as a walking lunch delivery service. A deep, primal fear of being exposed, of being without a refuge, washes over you. You take a deep, steadying breath, the cool, clean air, doing little to calm the frantic hummingbird of your heart. You must think. Panicking is a luxury you cannot afford. You look up, through the gaps in the thick canopy, and try to locate the sun. It's a pale, buttery orb, now climbing higher in the eastern sky. You have a vague sense of the direction you came from, but it's a fragile, intuitive guess. You begin to walk away from the stream, moving slowly, deliberately. Your eyes scan the forest floor, searching for any sign of your passage. A broken twig, a scuffed patch of moss, your own footprints in a patch of soft mud. The ground, however, seems to have swallowed your tracks whole, leaving no trace. It's a humbling lesson in your own insignificance. The wilderness does not remember you. After several agonizing minutes of walking in what you hope is a straight line, a familiar shape emerges from the sea of green. It's a uniquely twisted tree, its trunk forked in a way that reminded you of a slingshot. You saw it on your way out. Relief washes over you so intensely it almost makes you dizzy. You are not lost after all. You recalibrate your internal compass, a newfound confidence guiding your steps. You make a mental note. Survival here isn't just about strength, but about observation, about turning the landscape into a map in your mind. Every distinctive rock, every fallen log, every strangely shaped tree is a crucial landmark. With the immediate terror of being lost subsiding, another, more familiar sensation takes its place. Hunger. A dull, hollow ache is spreading through your midsection. The water sloshing in your stomach has only made it more apparent. Your body needs fuel. Your quest for water is over. The great morning forage has now begun. You start to look at the surrounding vegetation with a new kind of scrutiny. Before, it was just a wall of green. Now, it is a potential menu. A dangerous and deeply confusing menu. It's like being in the world's most organic, free-range supermarket. Except every third item on the shelf might send you into anaphylactic shock. Your eyes land on a bush dotted with small, bright red berries. They look plump and juicy, glistening with morning dew. They also look suspiciously like the decorative and highly poisonous holly berries from your modern life. You recall a vague rhyme from childhood: white and yellow, kill a fellow. Purple and blue, good for you. Red, could be good, could be dead. It's not exactly the kind of concrete, scientific advice you were hoping for. You give the berries a wide berth. Your gaze sweeps the forest floor. You see mushrooms, a cluster of pale, fragile-looking things, sprouting from the base of a rotting log. Are they a culinary delight, or a ticket to a swift and agonizing demise? There's no way to know. You have a lifetime of accumulated knowledge that is utterly useless here. You can't read, you can't write, but you can, for instance, silently judge someone's font choices on a restaurant menu. Here, that skill is worthless. The knowledge that matters is etched into the earth, and you are illiterate. Historians still argue whether the knowledge of edible plants was passed down through generations via language and instruction, or if it was a brutal process of trial and error. You shudder to think of the first unfortunate human who discovered the lethality of a death-cap mushroom, so that his friends could learn to avoid it. You press on, hunger gnawing at you. Your modern diet has made you soft. You are used to 3 square meals a day, plus snacks. Your prehistoric body would be far more accustomed to intermittent fasting. But your modern brain is already starting to get cranky. You poke at the dirt with a stick, wondering about roots and tubers. You've seen shows about this. People dig up potato-like things from the ground. You start digging aimlessly in a patch of soft earth. After a few minutes of fruitless effort, you've managed to do little more than get dirt under your fingernails and disturb a very angry-looking earthworm. The sheer amount of labor involved for a hypothetical, probably not even their root, is staggering. It's here you're reminded of a key historical fact that is often overshadowed by dramatic images of mammoth hunting. While hunting was crucial, a huge portion of the caloric intake for many early human societies came from gathering. It was the nuts, the berries, the roots, and the insects that formed the stable, reliable backbone of their diet. This less glamorous work, often undertaken by the women and children of a clan, was the bedrock of survival. We know this in intimate and somewhat unsettling detail thanks to the study of coprolites, that's the scientific, and far more polite term for fossilized human feces. By analyzing these ancient remnants, archaeologists can determine precisely what was on the menu tens of thousands of years ago, from the tiniest of seeds to the remnants of roasted rodents. You ponder this for a moment. Someone, thousands of years from now, might be analyzing your own fossilized failure to find breakfast. Dejected, you decide to abandon the root-digging experiment. Your eyes continue to scan the undergrowth. You spot a spider, a behemoth with hairy legs, and an abdomen the size of a large grape, sitting placidly in the center of an enormous web. You make an immediate, instinctual decision that even if it were a local delicacy, you will starve. You take a 10-foot detour around it, feeling its 8 eyes on your back. Some fears, it seems, are timeless. It's as you are navigating this arachnid-induced diversion that you hear a new sound. It's not the gentle rustle of leaves or the chirping of birds. It's a heavy, deliberate crashing sound in the underbrush, accompanied by a series of low, guttural snorts. It's close, very close. You freeze, every muscle in your body tensing. Your head snaps in the direction of the noise, your heart suddenly hammering against your ribs. The sound of your own blood roaring in your ears is deafening. Out from behind a thicket of ferns, not 30 feet from you, a beast emerges. It's a wild boar, a great, hairy brute of a thing. Its body is a solid mass of muscle, covered in coarse, dark bristles. Its small, intelligent eyes fix on you for a terrifying second. But what really sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through your system is its head. From its long, powerful snout protrude 2 wicked-looking tusks, curved and yellowed and sharp. They are weapons, honed and ready. The boar lets out another huff, stamping its cloven hoof on the ground. It isn't charging. It isn't even necessarily threatening you. It is simply existing, powerfully and unapologetically, in its own territory. And you are trespassing. In that moment, you understand with absolute clarity that you are not a hunter. You are not a warrior. You are prey. You are soft and slow. And you have no claws, no tusks, no venom. You are utterly, laughably defenseless. The boar is a walking embodiment of this world's brutal indifference to your existence. It could kill you, easily, and the forest would not care. The sun would continue to shine, the stream would continue to flow, and you would simply be gone. You do the only thing you can. You back away, slowly, deliberately. You do not run, for fear of triggering a chase response. Your feet move with a carefulness you didn't know you possessed, stepping backward, one agonizing step at a time. Your eyes remain locked on the boar, which thankfully seems to lose interest in you, dropping its head to snuffle and root in the earth for its own breakfast. Once you've put what feels like a safe distance between yourself and the animal, you turn and walk, quickly and silently, back the way you came. The hunger is forgotten, replaced entirely by the desperate, all-consuming need for the safety of your cave. You navigate by instinct now, fueled by fear. And as the familiar, dark maw of the cave entrance finally comes into view, you practically sprint the last few yards, scrambling inside and pressing your back against the cool stone wall, breathing in ragged, shallow gasps. You are safe. You are also starving. The morning is slipping away, and all you have to show for it is a profound new appreciation for just how low on the food chain you really are. Back in the relative darkness of the cave, your heart eventually slows its frantic rhythm. The ghostly image of the boar's tusks gradually fades from the forefront of your mind, replaced once more by the persistent, gnawing emptiness in your stomach. The fear subsides, but the hunger remains. You have returned with nothing. No berries, no roots, not even a grub. You are safe, but you are still starving, and the day is marching on relentlessly. The soft gray light of dawn has given way to the full, bright light of late morning. The sun is climbing, and from the mouth of your cave, you can see the world outside transforming under its gaze. The shadows are shrinking, and the cool, damp smells of the morning are being baked away, replaced by the scent of warm rock and dry leaves. The hunger is a powerful motivator. Despite the boar, despite the unknown, you know you cannot simply sit here and waste away. You decide to try again, but with a new strategy. No more deep forays into the woods. You will stay close, within sight of the cave entrance, and search the immediate perimeter. It feels like a safer compromise. You poke your head out of the cave, scanning the area like a timid gopher. The coast appears to be clear. No tusked monstrosities are currently rooting around your doorstep. Taking a breath, you step back out into the light, and it hits you. The sun. It's not the friendly, familiar sun you know. It's a raw, unfiltered, celestial furnace. In your world, you live under a filtered sky, behind coated glass windows, and walk through cities where tall buildings chop the sunlight into manageable, shifting blocks. You are rarely exposed to its full, naked power for more than a few minutes at a time. Here, there is nothing between you and its relentless, overhead assault. It beats down with an intensity that feels personal, pressing on your scalp and the tops of your shoulders. The air, which was cool and pleasant just a couple of hours ago, is now thick and hot. A shimmering haze is beginning to rise from the ground, making the distant trees ripple and distort. You begin your second, more cautious, forage. You keep your eyes down, scanning the edges of the undergrowth for anything that looks remotely edible. But your attention is soon diverted by a new sensation. An unfamiliar prickling heat is blossoming across the back of your neck and on your forearms. You glance down. Your skin, pale and accustomed to an indoor existence, is turning a bright, angry pink. You are getting a sunburn, and a spectacular one at that. It's a discomfort that builds slowly, a cumulative assault. First the heat, then a tightness, as if your skin is shrinking. Soon it will begin to sting, and any touch will be an agony. You suddenly feel terribly exposed, your skin a massive, vulnerable organ crying out for relief. You imagine our ancient ancestors, their skin toned and adapted over millennia to the UV levels of their environment. Their lives were spent outdoors, their skin thickening and darkening with the seasons in a way yours never has. But even they likely sought respite. And you remember hearing that some early humans developed clever ways to protect themselves. Archaeological finds from tens of thousands of years ago show a dramatic increase in the use of ochre, a natural clay pigment rich in iron oxide. While it was certainly used for ritual and art, some scientists believe one of its primary functions was as a prehistoric sunscreen, a practice still seen today among the Himba people of Namibia who coat their skin in a paste of red ochre and fat. The reddish powder acts as a physical barrier, reflecting the harmful rays. It was a brilliant, early innovation, a cosmetic that was also a life-saving tool. You have no such knowledge or resources. Your only option is the shade. You retreat to the edge of the tree line, the sudden coolness of the shadows, offering a moment of blessed relief. But the hunger is still there, a constant companion. As you stand in the dappled light, you become aware of another growing annoyance. A sound. A low, persistent, high-pitched hum. And then you feel it. A tiny, tickling sensation on your arm. You look down to see a small black fly with iridescent wings brazenly exploring your sunburned skin. You swat it away, a flash of irritation flaring up. But it is not alone. It is part of a squadron. A small cloud of them has materialized out of thin air, drawn to the sweat and warmth of your body. They are relentless, buzzing around your head, trying to land in the corners of your eyes, on your lips, in your ears. You wave your hands in front of your face, a frantic, useless gesture that only seems to excite them more. You retreat deeper into the cave, but a few of the more persistent ones follow you in, their buzzing amplified in the enclosed space. These are not the fat, slow houseflies of your time. These are wild, tenacious insects, and you are simply a new, interesting salt lick that has wandered into their territory. Add to them the whine of a prehistoric mosquito, a sound hardwired into the human psyche to produce instant annoyance, and you have a recipe for slow-burning madness. There is no screen door, no can of bug spray, no soothing calamine lotion for the inevitable welts. There is only the endless, maddening hum, and the constant creepy-crawly sensation of tiny feet on your skin. And with the retreat from the sun and the insects, a new and far more insidious affliction begins to set in. Boredom. Crushing, absolute boredom. You sit on the stone floor of the cave, your stomach rumbling, your skin stinging, and an insect buzzing somewhere near your ear. And there is nothing to do. Nothing. In your normal life, every spare second is filled. You have a phone in your pocket, a universe of distraction a thumb swipe away. There are books, music, movies, conversations. There is work, chores, errands. Your mind is a constantly churning engine of tasks and entertainment. Here, the engine has stalled. The silence, which at first was peaceful, is now a vast, empty stadium where your own thoughts echo with painful clarity. You stare at the cave wall opposite you. You trace the cracks with your eyes again. You count the stalactites, if there are any. You rearrange the pile of uncomfortable-looking leaves in the corner, then rearrange them back. You find a smooth stone and run your thumb over its surface, again and again. The sheer weight of unfilled time is a physical pressure. This, perhaps, is a uniquely modern suffering. An early human in this position would likely have 100 small tasks to occupy their time. mending a hide, chipping a new point onto a spear, observing the weather patterns. Their minds would be trained for this pace of life. Your mind is like a race car stuck in a traffic jam, revving and sputtering, and going nowhere. You find yourself experiencing what might be the world's first ever documented case of existential ennui, and you don't even have the comfort of a sad French film to accompany it. To distract yourself from the grand, crushing meaninglessness of it all, you focus on the small. You notice a sharp flake of flint lying near the wall, likely a leftover from some ancient tool-making session. You pick it up, turning it over in your fingers. The edge is surprisingly keen. You run it lightly over the back of your other hand, just to feel it, and then a slip. The flint bites deeper than you intended. A thin, crimson line appears on your skin, welling up with a few bright beads of blood. A paper cut. A trivial, everyday injury. You pop the cut into your mouth instinctively, the coppery taste of your own blood shocking on your tongue. And then, you freeze. A tiny cut. Back home, it would be a non-event. You would rinse it with soap and warm water, maybe dab it with antiseptic cream and cover it with a sterile cartoon character-adorned bandage. In an hour, you would forget it ever happened. But here it is a gaping doorway. There is no soap. There is no clean, sterile water. The stream outside may look pure, but it is teeming with microscopic life. There is no antiseptic. There are no bandages. The cut, small as it is now exposed to the dirt on the cave floor, to the unsanitary state of your own skin, to every floating mote in this ancient, unsterilized air. Suddenly, you understand on a gut level one of the most fundamental facts of pre-modern life: the overwhelming threat of infection. Before the understanding of germ theory, before Joseph Lister pioneered antiseptic surgery, the simplest of injuries could, and very often did, become a death sentence. A cut could become infected. The infection could lead to sepsis. Sepsis could lead to fever, delirium, and death. It was a brutal and ever-present reality. Historians and paleopathologists studying ancient human remains see the evidence etched in the signs of infections that raged unchecked, of lives cut short, not by predators or starvation, but by a splinter. Of course, scholars still debate the efficacy of prehistoric folk medicine. Perhaps a poultice of a certain leaf or a smear of specific tree sap did have antiseptic properties. Their use is discovered through generations of observation and desperate experimentation. But you possess none of that knowledge. You stare at the tiny, insignificant red line on your hand with a sense of utter dread. It is no longer a paper cut. It is a liability, a breach in the fortress wall of your own body. This little scrape, this momentary lapse of attention, could be the thing that ends your 24-hour journey prematurely. Every throb, no matter how slight, sends a jolt of anxiety through you. The boar was a spectacular, heart-pounding threat. The sun was an oppressive force. But this tiny, silent, internal threat feels somehow the most terrifying of all. The throbbing in your hand from that tiny, insignificant cut has become a dull metronome, counting out the seconds of your miserable afternoon. It's a constant, nagging reminder of your own vulnerability, a microscopic threat that feels more potent than the memory of the boar. That fear, combined with the relentless, aching hollowness of your stomach, finally pushes you into action. You cannot afford to be paralyzed by what-ifs. You need to eat. The sun, thank goodness, has begun its slow descent from its tyrannical peak, its light mellowing from a harsh white glare to a warmer, more forgiving gold. The air is still warm, but the oppressive, baking quality has lessened. It's time to hunt. Your mind, conditioned by a lifetime of heroic stories, conjures up a rather ambitious fantasy. You will be a hunter, a provider. You'll find a strong, straight branch, fashion a sharp point with that handy flint flake, and track some noble beast through the forest. You imagine yourself, spear held aloft, a silent, deadly shadow moving through the trees. It's a compelling, powerful image, fueled by desperation and a complete lack of any real-world experience. You are, for a fleeting, delusional moment, the master of your environment. This fantasy lasts for approximately 7 minutes. You find a stick that looks vaguely spear-like and spend a good 10 minutes scraping the end to a point with your flint. The result is less a lethal weapon and more a large, pointy twig. Armed with your pathetic spear, you step out of the cave once more. You adopt what you assume is a hunter's gait-low, slow, and purposeful. You are immediately betrayed by a dry branch that cracks under your foot with a report of a small firework. So much for being a silent shadow. The forest, which seemed so full of noise when you were trying to be quiet, is now utterly still. There are no deer, conveniently waiting to be turned into dinner. No plump, slow-moving mammals to be found. The reality of hunting dawns on you with a humbling clarity. It is not an act of aggression. It is a science of observation, of patience, of understanding animal behavior, tracks, and scents. It is a library of knowledge passed down through generations. And you haven't even checked out the first book. You look at your pointy stick, then back at the immense, indifferent woods, and you have to suppress a hysterical giggle. Bringing this thing into a confrontation with an actual animal would be like showing up to a gunfight with a strongly worded letter. Your grand plans for a venison steak dinner evaporate, replaced by a more realistic and frankly, more desperate goal. Your eyes begin scanning not the deep woods, but the ground, the rocks, the logs. Your ambitions have been downsized from majestic megafauna to, well, anything that moves and is smaller than your foot. And then you see it, a small green lizard basking lazily on a sun-warmed rock. It's no bigger than your hand, its sides puffing in and out with tiny, calm breaths. Finally, a target you might actually have a chance against. What follows is one of the least dignified hunts in the history of humankind. You creep towards the lizard, your mighty spear held at the ready. It lets you get within 10 feet before its head cocks to the side. You freeze. It seems to look right at you, not with fear, but with a kind of reptilian boredom. You take another shuffling step forward, and it's gone. A blur of green, vanishing into a crack in the rock so fast, it might have been a hallucination. You are left standing there, pointy stick in hand, feeling utterly and completely incompetent. Failure is a sharp, bitter taste. Dejected, you abandon the spear hunting charade. There will be no triumphant return with game slung over your shoulder. But the hunger is an inventive taskmaster. If you cannot hunt, you must gather. You wander aimlessly for a few minutes until you stumble upon a large, rotting log, half buried in the damp earth. A memory surfaces from some nature documentary you once half-watched. A last-ditch source of protein. Steeling yourself, you pry at the decaying wood with your fingers. The bark comes away in soft, damp chunks, revealing a writhing, hidden world beneath. It is a treasure trove of creepy crawlies, fat, white grubs, curled into pale crescent moons, shiny, black beetles that scurry for darkness, a centipede, its 100 legs moving in a hypnotic, terrifying wave. Your initial reaction is one of pure, unadulterated revulsion. Your modern sensibilities scream at you to back away, but the rumble in your stomach answers with a stronger, more primal argument. This is food, high in protein, readily available, and blessedly slow-moving. Entomophagy, the practice of eating insects, was almost certainly a crucial part of the prehistoric diet, a reliable source of nutrition when larger game was scarce. You take a deep breath, trying to reframe your disgust as appreciation for your good fortune. It doesn't really work, but you manage to pluck a few of the plumpest, least mobile grubs and drop them into a large leaf you fashioned into a makeshift pouch. It's a grim harvest, but it's a harvest nonetheless. With your pathetic collection of future food, you trudge back to the cave. The next challenge awaits: fire. You cannot imagine eating these things raw. You need the transformative magic of flame. You remember that blackened patch on the ceiling, a testament to countless successful fires. This should be simple enough. It is not simple enough. You gather your materials with a grim sense of purpose. A flat piece of soft wood for a fireboard, a straight, hard stick for a spindle, and a fluffy bundle of the driest moss and shredded bark you can find for tinder. You vaguely recall two methods. The first is the hand drill. You kneel, place the spindle against the board, and begin rubbing it between your palms, pressing down. For the first 30 seconds, you feel a surge of optimism. Friction. Science. But soon, the reality sets in. The motion is awkward and inefficient. Your palms start to burn, not with the promise of heat on the board, but with the raw beginnings of blisters. All you produce is a fine dusting of wood powder and a growing sense of despair. You switch tactics, attempting to create a bow drill, a far more efficient method. But that requires a flexible branch and a cord, perhaps a strip of hide or sinew, which you do not have. So, it's back to the basics, just two sticks. It is a lesson in profound humility. Historians still argue about when controlled fire truly became a skill humans had mastered, as opposed to something they opportunistically harvested from lightning strikes. While evidence suggests our ancestor Homo erectus was using fire over 1 million years ago, the ability for any random individual to simply create it on demand was a revolutionary, and likely very hard-won, technology. You work for what feels like hours. Sweat drips from your brow. Your shoulders ache. Your hands are raw. The sheer amount of physical energy required is astounding. It's a full-body workout, fueled by desperation. And the only result is a pathetic dimple in the fireboard. You are an intelligent, capable, modern human, being comprehensively defeated by 2 pieces of wood. You let out a scream of pure frustration, the sound swallowed by the uncaring stone of the cave. Then, just as you are about to give up, to resign yourself to a raw grub dinner, you see it, a tiny, faint wisp of smoke, curling up from the wood dust you've created. It's real. Your heart leaps. You redouble your efforts, spinning the spindle with the last of your energy, ignoring the searing pain in your hands. The smoke thickens. You can smell it now, the hot, sharp scent of scorching wood. Carefully, so carefully, you tap the pile of glowing embers from the board into your tinder bundle. Now comes the delicate part. You cup the bundle in your hands and bring it to your lips, blowing a soft, steady stream of air. It's a conversation with an ember. Too soft, and it will die. Too hard, and you'll blow it away. You feel like you're trying to perform CPR on a ferry. For a moment, nothing happens. The glow seems to fade. Then, a tiny orange flame, no bigger than your thumbnail, flickers into existence. It is the most beautiful, most triumphant sight you have ever seen. You gently nurture it, adding tiny twigs, then larger ones, until you have a small, crackling, sustainable fire in the center of your cave. The sun has now vanished below the horizon. As twilight bleeds across the sky, painting it in shades of purple and deep orange, you conduct your prehistoric dinner party for one. You impale one of your grubs on a thin twig and hold it over the flames. It sizzles, pops, and quickly blackens. You let it cool for a second before cautiously putting it in your mouth. The taste is underwhelming. It's crunchy on the outside, slightly gooey on the inside, and tastes mostly of smoke and char. It's not food you enjoy. It's fuel you consume. You grimly cook and eat the rest of your meager haul. As the last light fades from the sky, leaving your small fire as the only point of light in an encroaching ocean of black, you huddle closer to it. It provides warmth, and it cooks your unappetizing food, but it does little to combat the profound sense of loneliness that is now settling over you. As cold and as heavy as the stone at your back, your small fire is the entire universe. Outside its flickering perimeter of light, there is nothing. You huddle closer, wrapping your stiff hide garment tighter around your shoulders, chasing the warmth. The flames dance and writhe, casting long, monstrous shadows that leap and contort against the cave walls. You are the sole audience for this silent, hypnotic ballet. Each crackle and pop from the burning twigs is a comforting punctuation mark in the vast, empty silence that presses in from all sides. The fire is not just a source of heat. It is your shield, your companion, your anchor in this overwhelming blackness. Its preservation becomes the single most important task in your life. You stare into the flames, rationing your small pile of scavenged wood with the anxiety of a miser counting his gold. Each time you place a new stick onto the embers, it feels like a sacrifice, a trade of future security for present comfort. The knowledge that your meager supply will not last the night is a cold, heavy stone in the pit of your stomach. The thought of venturing back out into the pitch-black, monster-haunted forest to find more fuel is simply unthinkable. You would be utterly blind, fumbling through a world you could barely navigate in the full light of day. For now, all you can do is watch the heart of your world slowly consume itself. And eventually, inevitably, the final stick burns down to a glowing red ember. The dancing light subsides. The shadows retreat and then merge into a single, all-consuming entity. The last of the warmth begins to dissipate, chased away by the deep, profound chill of the deep night. The embers glow for a while longer, a constellation of dying stars on the cave floor, before winking out one by one, leaving you in a darkness so total, so absolute, that it feels like a physical substance. It is a blackness your modern eyes have never experienced. This is not the dark of a city night, polluted by the glow of street lamps and distant buildings. This is not the dark of a rural home, with the faint moonlight filtering through a window. This is the primordial dark, the kind of dark that exists at the bottom of the ocean. It presses against your eyelids. You hold a hand up inches from your face, and you see nothing. It's as if you have gone suddenly, completely blind. The world has been erased, deleted. All that exists is you, and the cold stone beneath you, and the vast, suffocating emptiness. With the loss of sight, your other senses explode into a state of hyper-awareness. Your ears, in particular, become your entire world. They strain to catch every nuance in the now terrifying symphony of the night. The gentle sigh of the draft through the cave entrance is no longer a whisper. It is a mournful, hollow moan, the breath of some unseen giant. The faint drip of water somewhere in the back of the cave, a sound you hadn't even noticed before, is now a relentless, maddening metronome marking your terror. Outside, a twig snaps. Your entire body seizes, muscles locking tight. What was it? Was it the boar from this morning, returning to snuffle at your doorstep? Or something else? Something larger, quieter, hungrier? A sudden screech pierces the night, sharp and alien. It's likely just a night bird or a small mammal, but in the theater of your mind, it is the shriek of a demon. A low, gravelly scrape sounds from somewhere down the hill. A rock, dislodged by the wind, or claws, dragging against stone. You have become a primitive seismograph. Every vibration in the earth, every tremor in the air, registering as a potential cataclysm. You have never felt so small, so soft, so utterly edible. You are nothing more than a morsel of terrified meat, cowering in a rock hollow. Fire was not just for warmth and cooking. For our ancestors, it was the primary line of defense, a wall of light and heat that kept the fangs and claws of the nocturnal world at bay. Your wall has crumbled. You are now exposed. Scholars still debate whether the profound darkness of the Paleolithic night was a crucible for creative thought at time, for storytelling, for introspection, for the birth of myth and spirituality, or whether it was merely an unrelenting 9-hour shift of pure, abject dread. Huddled there, with your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs, you are strongly leaning towards Team Abject Dread. Any capacity for creative thought has been short-circuited by the primal instinct to simply survive. Your mind, with no visual input to process, begins to feed on itself. The darkness becomes a screen onto which it projects your deepest fears. The vague, unpleasant smell of the cave, the one you noticed this morning, is now definitively the smell of a predator's den. The throbbing of the cut on your hand feels hotter, angrier, and you imagine infection spreading up your arm in the blackness. You start thinking about the cave itself, not as a shelter, but as a living thing. You remember that fringe tidbit about troglodytes, those strange, pale creatures that evolved to live their entire lives in the permanent dark of deep caves, their eyes vanishing over generations. Are you alone in here? Are there blind, silent things sharing this space with you, scuttling just at the edge of hearing? Probably not, you tell yourself. It's an irrational fear, but in this suffocating dark, irrationality feels like a perfectly sensible response. Time ceases to have any meaning. There is only the long, dark now. Minutes stretch into what feel like epochs. Sleep is an impossible dream. You are far too wired, too adrenalized, to even approach a state of rest. You are locked in a state of suspended animation, a sleepless, shivering vigil. You simply endure. Every muscle is tensed, ready to spring, though you have no idea where you would spring to. You doze in short, feverish bursts, jolting awake at every new sound. Unsure if you are asleep for a moment or an hour, it is a state of quiet, grinding terror that is more exhausting than any physical labor you have ever performed. This isn't living. This is just waiting. Waiting for the monsters to get you, or for the sun to save you. And then, after an eternity, you see it. It is so faint at first. You think your tired eyes are playing tricks on you. But it is there, a subtle shift. At the mouth of the cave, the absolute, featureless black is giving way to a soft, barely perceptible charcoal gray. The night is losing its iron grip. You watch, not daring to breathe, as the gray lightens, minute by agonizing minute, to a pale, misty blue. The shapes of the trees outside begin to resolve themselves, first as ghostly silhouettes, then as solid forms. The terror begins to recede, washed away by the slow, miraculous tide of the dawn. When the first direct ray of sunlight finally spears through the trees and splashes against the far wall of the cave, the feeling of relief is so overwhelming, it brings tears to your eyes. You have made it. You have survived. Your 24 hours in this prehistoric world are over. You are cold. You are hungry. Your skin is a patchwork of stinging sunburn and insect bites. Your hand throbs, and you are bone-deep exhausted from a night without a single moment of real rest. You have not triumphed. You have not conquered. You have simply clung on by your fingernails as you slowly, painfully, push yourself to your feet and step out into the clean, crisp air of the new morning. You look out at the ancient, beautiful, and utterly brutal world with a profound new respect for the people who didn't just visit for 24 hours, but who called this life. A Viking Berserker fails to meet team player metrics. You are floating in that deep, comfortable void of sleep, the one place where no one expects anything from you. It is a quiet, featureless dark, a welcome respite from a world made of damp wool and smoke. But a sound begins to intrude. It starts small, a distant clang, like a clumsy ghost dropping a pot in the kitchens of the gods. Then it grows louder, more insistent. It is the sound of metal on metal, a rhythmic, grating clamor that seems designed specifically to pull you from your peaceful oblivion. It's Sven. Of course it's Sven. He has been assigned the duty of waking the Longhouse, and he approaches this task with the same subtlety and grace as a landslide. Your eyes remain closed, a final, futile protest against the dawn. The inside of the Longhouse smells exactly as it did when you drifted off. Of old fires, damp earth, unwashed bodies, and the faint, ever-present aroma of simmering stew that seems to have permeated the very timbers of the building. You are lying on a wooden bench built into the wall, a space that serves as your bed, your chair, and your storage unit. A rough, scratchy wool blanket is pulled up to your chin, and for a moment, you consider simply refusing to move. You could feign illness, or perhaps even death. It's a tempting strategy, but ultimately, a flawed one. Eric the Jarl is not known for his patience with malingerers. The clamor ceases, replaced by Sven's booming voice, announcing the morning with all the cheer of a man who genuinely enjoys being awake at this hour. You cannot relate. Your head feels thick, filled with cotton, and a dull ache resides behind your eyes. This, you suspect, is the lingering gift of last night's mead, a beverage that always seems like a fantastic idea until the moment Sven starts his morning symphony. Slowly, you force your eyes open. The world swims into a blurry focus. Across the central fire pit, which smolders with the embers of yesterday's blaze, you can see the vague shapes of other warriors stirring. They are pulling on leather boots, stretching their stiff limbs, and grumbling into their beards. The light is dim, filtering down in dusty shafts from the smoke hole in the roof, illuminating a gentle swirl of ash and air that makes the whole scene feel even more dreamlike. It is a large, communal space, this longhouse, home to dozens of people, their livestock sometimes sectioned off at one end during the harshest winters. It leaves little room for privacy. You live your life in public, a performance for an audience of your peers who are all, in turn, performing for you. You swing your legs over the side of the bench, your bare feet meeting the cold, packed dirt floor. A shiver works its way up your spine. You reach for your tunic, the fabric, coarse against your skin. Dressing is a simple, mechanical process. Trousers, tunic, a leather belt from which your personal eating knife hangs. It's all very functional. No fuss. Around you, the longhouse is slowly coming to life. The low murmur of conversation begins to rise, punctuated by coughs and the sharp crackle of the fire as someone adds fresh wood. Someone is already at the hearth, stirring a large iron cauldron. The smell of breakfast begins to cut through the smokiness. It is porridge. It is always porridge. You amble over to the cauldron, grabbing a wooden bowl from a stack nearby. A woman with flour-dusted hands, her face perpetually stern, ladles a heavy, grayish substance into your bowl. It lands with a glutinous plop. This is gret, the fuel of your people. A thick porridge of oats or barley, boiled with water or, on a good day, milk. Today does not look like a good day. You stare into the bowl. The concoction has the consistency of wet cement and appears just as appetizing. Still, it is warm, and it will fill the emptiness in your stomach. You find a relatively unoccupied spot on a bench and begin to eat, the wooden spoon scraping against the bowl. It is bland, utilitarian, and gets the job done. The perfect metaphor for most mornings. As you methodically consume your paste, Eric the Jarl strides into the center of the hall. He is a mountain of a man, his beard a magnificent, braided affair, woven with silver rings that catch the firelight. His presence immediately silences the low chatter. When Eric talks, everyone listens. Well, almost everyone. You find your attention drifting. He unrolls a large piece of tanned leather on a table, a makeshift map scrawled upon it in charcoal. This is the tactical briefing. Eric's finger, as thick as a sausage, stabs at a crude drawing of a coastline. He speaks of tides, of winds, of the layout of a monastery clinging to a western shore, a place supposedly overflowing with silver and wine. He mentions formations, signals, and the importance of the shield wall. The shield wall. You suppress a small sigh. This is where the team player metrics always get you. The concept is simple enough. Warriors stand shoulder to shoulder, overlapping their circular shields to create an almost impenetrable barrier. It is the cornerstone of Norse warfare, a testament to discipline, trust, and collective strength. You appreciate the theory, truly, but in the heat of the moment, when the blood sings in your ears, and the world narrows to you, and the man in front of you, the stationary nature of it all feels limiting. Why stand in a line when you could be a whirlwind of joyous destruction? This is a point of contention between you and Eric. You tune back into his voice just as he's describing the target. He talks about guard patrols and weak points in their stone walls. Your mind, however, is snagged on a different thought. Historians still argue whether berserkers were a formalized warrior cult, fueled by rituals, or simply exceptionally fierce individuals known for their battle rage. You've never been formally invited to any cult meetings, so you lean toward the latter. For you, the Berserker Gang isn't a strategy. It's a state of being, a wonderful, terrible release where the noise of the world fades away, replaced by an internal roar. It's a place where there are no complex instructions, no formations, and certainly no synchronized shield hopping. Eric's diagram, with its little stick figures and arrows, looks less like a battle plan, and more like a helpful suggestion you are free to creatively interpret. He mentioned something about a silent approach at dusk, about securing the boats. You nod along with the others, trying to look engaged. You pick at a splinter on the wooden bench. You wonder if anyone remembered to pack the good whetstone. Sharpening your axe is a meditative process you actually enjoy. Unlike this corporate team-building exercise, you notice a small, carved wooden horse next to Eric's map, probably a toy belonging to one of his children. For a moment, you imagine it's the key to the entire plan. Step 1. Deploy the tiny horse. Step 2. Victory. It's a more engaging plan than the one involving all that standing in a line. A warrior next to you, a burly man named Olaf, gives you a nudge. "Are you listening, Bjorn?" he mutters, his breath smelling of porridge and stale ale. "The Jarl wants us light and fast. Leave the heavy mail." You give him a placid smile and a slow nod, as if you have absorbed and processed this information. Light and fast. You can do that. Being weighed down is inefficient, after all. Eric is finishing up, his voice resonating with confidence. "For the glory of our ancestors and the wealth of our clan," a chorus of deep-throated roars answers him. You add your own, a half-beat late, but with enough volume to blend in. The meeting is over. The day's unpleasantries can now begin in earnest. You set your empty porridge bowl down, feeling the first faint stirrings of something. Not quite excitement, more like an inevitable acceptance of the chaos to come. A quiet resignation to a job that has very specific group project requirements you are almost certain to fail. The short walk from the warmth of the longhouse to the edge of the fjord is a transition between two worlds. The air outside is sharp and clean, carrying the scent of pine needles and damp earth. It's a welcome change from the smoky interior. A brief moment of clarity before you are plunged into the next phase of this group activity. The path down to the water is well worn, a muddy track winding between towering spruce trees. The sky above is a canvas of soft gray, the clouds heavy with the promise of a light, persistent drizzle. Down below, nestled against the dark, placid water of the fjord, the longship awaits. She is called Sea Serpent, a name that promises more speed and elegance than you are likely to experience on the journey. From a distance, she's a thing of beauty, long, narrow, and graceful. Her high, curving prow is carved into the stylized head of a fearsome beast, its wooden eyes staring blankly toward the open water. She is clinker-built, meaning the hull planks overlap, a design that makes the ship remarkably flexible and strong, allowing it to bend and ride with the waves, rather than fight against them. It's a brilliant piece of engineering, truly, a masterpiece of naval architecture. This abstract appreciation, however, begins to fade the closer you get. Up close, The sea serpent is less a masterpiece and more a long, wooden trough that smells powerfully of tar, wet wood, and a faint, fishy bilgewater aroma that seems to be a permanent feature. A group of men are already loading the last of the supplies. Leather waterskins, barrels of dried fish, and sacks of the same hard, uninspiring bread that threatens to crack a tooth with every bite. The atmosphere is one of purposeful, low-key activity. You are just another component to be loaded. You step aboard, your boots thudding softly on the wooden deck planks. The ship rocks gently beneath you, a subtle, constant motion that is already making you feel slightly queasy. Finding your spot is simple. There are no assigned seats on this vessel. You just find a space on one of the wooden chests, your sea chest, that will serve as your rowing bench. These chests hold your personal gear, a spare tunic, a whetstone, maybe a small wooden carving you've been working on to pass the long hours. The problem is that the chest is also shared storage, a repository for whatever your benchmate decides is essential, like Olaf's inexplicable collection of smooth, gray stones. It's the Viking equivalent of a long road trip in a car, packed to the roof, with everyone arguing over legroom. You find an unoccupied chest and settle yourself down, your shield and axe placed within easy reach. The space is intimate. When the benches are full, you will be shoulder to shoulder, a tight-knit community of damp wool and questionable hygiene. More men clamber aboard, and soon the ship is full. Eric stands near the stern, by the steering oar, issuing quiet commands. With a series of grunts and shuffling, the heavy mooring ropes are cast off. For a moment, the ship drifts, silent on the dark water. Then comes the order to row. You and the 30 or so other men on board lift your heavy oak oars. And so begins the commute. The first few strokes are always a mess, a symphony of discord. An oar splashes uselessly here. Another clatters against a shield there. Someone behind you catches a crab, sending a jolt down his bench and earning a string of quiet curses. It's like watching a flock of clumsy geese attempting synchronized swimming. Eventually, a rhythm begins to emerge, orchestrated by the steady, guttural chant of a man at the prow. A beat, a pull, a recovery. It is monotonous, grueling work. The handle of the oar is rough in your hands, and you can already feel the familiar strain in your back and shoulders. As the sea serpent glides out of the protective embrace of the fjord and into the choppy, open sea, the real fun begins. The gentle rocking gives way to a more determined pitching and rolling. The ship's flexible hull creaks and groans around you, a constant, low-voiced complaint. Cold spray crests the side of the boat, spattering your face and soaking the front of your tunic. It is relentless. And then, the nausea that was a quiet suggestion back at the dock begins to make a more forceful argument. The gray porridge you had for breakfast feels like a lead weight in your stomach. You fix your eyes on the back of the man rowing in front of you, trying to match his rhythm, trying to think of anything other than the churning in your gut. This is the part of the journey you find most challenging. It is difficult to cultivate a fearsome battle rage when you are preoccupied with not vomiting on your neighbor's boots. You once heard of mariners so skilled they never got sick. You are not one of them. You console yourself with the fringe tidbit that some people use sun-dried crocodile dung as a form of cosmetic sunscreen in other lands. Your current situation, while unpleasant, is probably better than that. Probably, hours bleed into one another, marked only by the changing light and the rotation of rowing duty. When you are not rowing, you huddle in your spot, trying to shield yourself from the wind. Conversation is sparse. There is little to say. Everyone is locked in their own private bubble of discomfort and boredom. This forced proximity is, in its own way, more trying than any battle. You learn things about your fellow warriors you never wanted to know. The way Håkon snores with a soft, whistling sound. The fact that Leif humming is somehow more distracting than Sven's morning gong show. You feel a pang of sympathy for the first-timers. Their faces pale, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and misery. They are discovering that the glorious life of a Viking raider involves a significant amount of tedious, damp travel. At one point, the clouds break and a pale sun shines down. Eric calls for the mast to be raised with a coordinated effort that is far more impressive than the rowing. The heavy pine mast is hoisted into place, and the large, square-sailed sail of striped red and white wool is unfurled. It catches the wind with a satisfying thump, and the ship surges forward. The need for rowing ceases, for a while at least. A collective sigh of relief ripples through the crew. Someone brings out a solarstein, a sunstone, which is a piece of calcite crystal. Scholars debate how Vikings navigated the open seas with such accuracy, and this is one of the prevailing theories. By holding the stone up to the sky, it is said you can find the sun's position even on an overcast day. It looks less like a magical compass and more like a cloudy rock, but the navigator seems to know what he's doing. He squints through it, murmurs something to the jarl, and the course is adjusted slightly. You just hope he's pointing it in the right direction. Getting lost and having to spend an extra day on this floating plank would be the final indignity. You lean your head back against the gunwale, closing your eyes. The seasickness has subsided to a low, grumbling resentment. The wind is cold, but the sun on your face is a small mercy. The journey is almost over. Soon, the rhythmic monotony of travel will be replaced by the chaotic cacophony of a raid, an activity for which, you admit to yourself, you are far better suited, provided you can get your land legs back in time. You just need to get through the landing, the march, and Eric's final pre-game pep talk about the sanctity of the shield wall. Then, and only then, can your true work begin. The bottom of the longship grates against a gravelly shore with a sound that is music to your ears. For the last hour, the world has been a monotonous canvas of gray water and gray sky, and the promise of solid, unmoving ground feels like a forgotten luxury. The motion of the sea still lives inside you, a faint, ghostly rocking, but your stomach, thankfully, has decided to remain at peace. Orders are given in low voices, and with practiced efficiency, you and the others leap over the side into the knee-deep, frigid water. The shock of the cold is sharp, immediate, and does wonders for clearing the last cobwebs from your mind. Together, you heave the sea serpent further up the narrow beach, nestled into a small, secluded cove masked by thick reeds and drooping willows. It is a good hiding place, out of sight from the sea and a difficult approach from the land. The air here is heavy with the smell of wet earth and decaying leaves. A thick mist clings to the ground, swallowing sounds and reducing visibility to perhaps 50 paces. It is perfect for a stealthy approach. You move from the beach into a stand of skeletal trees, your boots sinking into the soft mud. Eric gathers everyone for a final hushed briefing. He points into the gray shroud, his voice a low rumble. The track is there. It leads directly to the monastery gate. We move quickly, quietly, form the wall once we are in the open. Håkon, Leif, you have the gate. Remember the signal. No one breaks ranks until the wall is broken. Understood? A series of grim nods answers him. You nod along too, the motion smooth, practiced. Inside, however, a different energy is beginning to build. It's a familiar hum, a vibration that starts deep in your chest and radiates outwards. The world sharpens. The feel of the leather grip on your axe, the weight of the shield on your arm, the sight of your own breath fogging in the damp air, it all becomes intensely, wonderfully real. This, right here, is the moment that makes the porridge and the seasickness worthwhile. Historians still debate whether the Berserker gang was a genuine trance-like state induced by psychotropic substances, or simply a calculated, terrifying performance of rage. For you, it's neither. It's a quiet click, a key turning in a lock. The cluttered room of your mind, with its worries about social dynamics and rowing etiquette, is suddenly swept clean, leaving only a single gleaming purpose: It is the purest form of focus, you know. The slow, tactical creep through the woods is agonizing. You understand the need for stealth, but your body wants to run. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves, sounds like a thunderclap in the oppressive silence. Ahead, through the thinning trees, you see it. A low stone wall, and behind it, the dark shape of a wooden building, and a single squat bell tower. This is it, the monastery, a place of quiet contemplation about to have its quiet rudely interrupted. As the group emerges from the woods into the open field before the walls, a bell begins to clang, frantic and alarmist. So much for the element of surprise. From a small side gate, a group of men pour out. They are not the terrified, soft-handed monks you might have expected. These are housecarls, local levies, armed with spears and round shields of their own, here to defend their lord's spiritual investment. Wall! Eric's voice is a sharp roar, cutting through the clang of the bell. Instantly, the scattered line of raiders consolidates. Shields lock together with a series of dull thuds. You find your place, as rehearsed, with Olaf on your right. His shield overlaps yours by a hand's breadth, your own shield covering his left side. The front rank becomes a solid barrier of wood and iron, an advancing fortress. The second rank, standing behind, lends its weight, ready to thrust their spears through the gaps. It's a magnificent, brutal machine, and you are a single, standardized cog within it. You can hear the heavy breathing of the men around you, the squelch of boots on the wet ground. The enemy is coming. A wave of shouting men running across the field. The impact, when it comes, is a jarring shock that travels up your arm and into your teeth. Spear points grate against shield faces. The shouts of the attackers are met with the grunts of your shield brothers as you all push back, a unified mass of muscle and wood. This is the shield wall at its best. It is a grind, a slow, attritional struggle. You brace your feet, lean your weight into your shield, and trust that the man next to you is doing the same. From the corner of your eye, you see a spear dart towards you. You angle your shield, deflecting it with a sharp crack of wood. It is effective. It is reliable. It is also, you feel, deeply inefficient. You are a storm, and they are asking you to be a fence post. And then you see it. An opening. A brief, beautiful moment of opportunity. A defender in front of you, a young man with more beard fuzz than ferocity, overextends his spear thrust. His shield lifts slightly, exposing his side. He is off balance. The shield wall protocol is clear. Hold your position. Let the man in the second rank handle it with a spear. Maintain the integrity of the wall above all else. This is the sensible, collaborative, team-oriented solution. Your mind, however, presents a different, much more direct solution. You could simply step out of the line, just for a moment, and solve the problem yourself. Proactively. It would be faster, cleaner, a little freelance project to move the wider enterprise forward. You don't consciously decide to do it. It just happens. In one smooth motion, you unlock your shield from Olaf's. Take one step forward, out of the line, and swing your axe. The hum in your chest becomes a roar. The world contracts to that single, vulnerable target. The satisfaction of the strike is absolute. The young man is no longer a problem. For a fleeting second, you feel a surge of pure, unadulterated triumph. This is what you were made for. Not standing and pushing, but acting. You turn, ready to flow into the next movement, to find the next opening, a whirlwind of individual excellence. But your moment of triumph has come at a cost to the team. By stepping forward, you created a gap in the wall. It's the Viking equivalent of leaving a critical vulnerability in a line of code during a group project. A defender, sharper than his fallen comrade, instantly sees the opening. He doesn't attack you, you are already moving elsewhere. He thrusts his spear directly into the space where your shield used to be. Olaf, who had been relying on your overlapping shield for protection, grunts in pain and surprise. as the spear point slices through the leather of his tunic and into the fleshy part of his arm. He stumbles back, his own shield dropping slightly. The line falters. Two other warriors have to quickly shuffle and readjust, their faces grim, to plug the hole that you, their highly esteemed colleague, so creatively opened. The cohesive unit is now scrambling. Eric barks a series of commands, his voice tight with frustration, not panic. The fight is by no means lost, but the clean, overpowering efficiency he planned for has been squandered. It is now a chaotic brawl, a messier and more dangerous affair for everyone involved. The advantage of discipline has been traded for a moment of your personal, destructive artistry. As the remaining defenders break and flee, you slowly come down from your battle high. The internal roar subsides, replaced by the panting of your own lungs and the groans of the injured. You see Olaf sitting on the wet grass, clutching his bleeding arm, his gaze fixed on you. It is not a look of hatred. It is a look of profound, weary disappointment. The kind of look a carpenter might give a beautiful, sharp axe that has proven itself utterly useless as a hammer. You wander past him into the now quiet courtyard of the monastery, stepping over discarded weapons and broken pottery. In a small, partially destroyed pen, you notice something unusual. Several large, exotic birds, with fantastically colored tail feathers, are huddled together in terror. Peacocks. An odd, almost comically luxurious choice for a remote northern monastery, and a fringe bit of trivia you file away for later. For now, however, the silence from your jarl is more deafening than any battle cry. The raid was a success, but your performance review is going to be a disaster. The journey back is a quiet affair, a stark contrast to the boisterous, mead-fueled celebrations that usually follow a successful raid. The sea serpent sits lower in the water now, laden with the fruits of your collective labor. There are chests filled with silver chalices and embroidered vestments, barrels of wine that the monks will sorely miss, and even a few captives huddled together, their eyes wide with terror and incomprehension. The loot is the lifeblood of your society, the currency of loyalty. It is how the Jarl rewards his followers and maintains his standing. Without this tangible success, a leader's authority can quickly erode. But despite the clear material victory, the mood on board is subdued, almost somber. No one is singing. No one is boasting. You feel the weight of their collective gaze upon you, even when no one is looking. You sit at your rowing bench, pulling the heavy oar through the dark water. The rhythm is the same, but the shared purpose feels fractured. Olaf is not rowing. He sits near the stern, his arm bound in a crude sling, his face pale. Every time you catch his eye, he looks away, not with anger, but with that same weary disappointment from the battlefield. It's a heavier burden than any barrel of wine. You have become an unreliable component, a part that might work brilliantly on its own but threatens the integrity of the whole machine. Your personal success has come at the expense of group cohesion, and that is a currency this small, interdependent society cannot afford to spend. When you finally guide the longship back into the familiar fjord, the relief you feel is mixed with a heavy sense of dread. As you secure the ship and begin unloading the treasure, the sounds of celebration begin to drift down from the longhouse. But Eric motions for you to stay. He waits until the last of the men, carrying the last of the chests, have disappeared up the muddy path. Then, he turns to you. The setting sun casts a long shadow behind him, making him seem even larger than he is. His face is unreadable, carved from the same stoic material as the cliffs surrounding the fjord. "Walk with me, Bjorn," he says. His voice is not loud, but it carries a finality that leaves no room for refusal. This is not a suggestion. This is a summons. You fall into step beside him, walking along the water's edge. The small waves of the fjord lap gently against the shore, a quiet, repetitive shushing sound. For a long time, neither of you speaks. He stops and picks up a flat, smooth stone, weighing it in his palm before skipping it across the water's surface. It bounces 7 times before sinking, each ripple expanding in a perfect, concentric circle. "Do you know why the wall works?" he asks, his gaze still fixed on the point where the stone disappeared. You remain silent. It does not feel like a rhetorical question, but you suspect he already knows your answer. It works because every man trusts the man next to him completely. He trusts that his flank is covered. He trusts that if he pushes, the man next to him will push too. He trusts that no one will suddenly decide to improvise. The wall is not about individual strength. It is about shared resolve. He finally turns to look at you, and his eyes are not angry. They are tired. It is about trust, Bjorn. And the men no longer trust you in the line. He sighs, a sound like the slow release of air from a blacksmith's bellows. Historians may one day debate whether a jarl's authority is absolute, or if it relies on a constant, fragile negotiation with his warriors. I can tell you it is the second one. I cannot force a man to stand next to someone he believes will get him killed for a moment of personal glory. Olaf will heal, but the trust is broken, and that is a harder wound to mend. You look down at your own hands, at the calluses on your palms from the axe and the oar. They are the hands of a warrior. A part of you wants to argue, to defend your actions, to explain the pure, crystalline logic of that moment in the battle. But you know it is pointless. He is not talking about tactics. He is talking about faith. He is managing his team. You are, without question, one of the most ferocious fighters I have ever seen. Eric continues, his tone softening into something that sounds almost like pity. When the blood rage takes you, you are like a winter storm. Unstoppable, unpredictable, beautiful, in a terrible way. But I cannot aim a storm. I can only point it in a general direction, and hope it doesn't blow down my own house. He gestures back towards the path leading away from the cove. Your time in the shield wall is over. The words land quietly, without drama, but they hit you with the force of a physical blow. To be removed from the line, it's unthinkable. It is your purpose, your identity. What is a warrior who does not fight in the battle line? What will I do? You ask, your own voice sounding hollow. Eric starts walking back toward the shore where the peacocks from the monastery are temporarily tethered, looking profoundly confused by the Scandinavian climate. Their vibrant tail feathers are a splash of impossible color against the gray and green of the landscape. They huddle together, occasionally letting out a strange, mournful cry that sounds completely alien in this land of cawing ravens and snarling wolves. These exotic creatures were a symbol of immense wealth and status in the lands to the south, a prize as valuable in its own way as the silver. Eric stops beside them. "This," he says with no trace of humor in his voice, "is your new responsibility." He explains that the birds are a gift for his wife, a sign of his power and reach, that he can bring such marvels home from across the sea. They require special care. A strong, warm enclosure must be built. They must be fed, protected from foxes and harsh weather. It is a task that requires patience, diligence, and constant attention. It is a task that requires one man, working alone. It is a performance improvement plan of the highest order. Your lone wolf tendencies are being officially sanctioned, channeled into a role where you cannot possibly endanger the team. You will be a guardian, not of the shield wall, but of exotic poultry. You look from Eric's unyielding face to the birds. One of them fans its spectacular tail, a shimmering display of iridescent blue and green eye spots. It struts a few steps, a parody of pride in its strange new world. The absurdity of it all is so immense it borders on the profound. You, Bjorn the Berserker, the storm of the battlefield, have been grounded permanently. Your ferocious energy, your singular focus, is now to be directed at keeping these magnificent, useless creatures alive through the unforgiving northern winter. You do not shout. You do not argue. You simply nod. a slow, tired acceptance. You have failed to meet the team player metrics. And now, you have been reassigned. Your new battle is not against spear-wielding housecarls, but against drafts, predators, and the withering ennui of a job well outside your core competencies. You reach out a tentative hand, and the peacock lets out another sad, alien cry. This is your life now. The quiet is deafening. The marriage alliance ruined by a terrible joke. You are the king. The title is still new. A heavy wool mantle that doesn't quite sit comfortably on your shoulders. It is late. The great hall is quiet, save for the snap and hiss of the last logs crumbling into embers in the central hearth. Outside, a wind howls a low, mournful song around the timber walls of your new palace. Everyone else is asleep, lost in the uncomplicated dark of their own dreams. But sleep does not come easily to you. Responsibility, you are discovering, is a relentless insomniac. On the heavy oak table before you, a map is unrolled. It is a crude thing, drawn on cured deerskin, the ink a mixture of soot and berry juice. Yet, it represents your entire world. There lies your kingdom, a vibrant patch of green, huddled around a network of rivers. And there, sprawling to the north, is her kingdom, a larger, wilder-looking expanse of forests and mountains, marked in a paler shade, as if less known, less civilized. You trace the dotted line that serves as your border, a fragile suggestion of division. For years, there has been a peace between these two lands, but it is a cold peace, a peace born of mutual suspicion, rather than genuine accord. It is an arrangement that feels temporary, breakable, and you are a man who prefers permanence. You seek a legacy made of stone, not of brittle understandings. An old man, your most trusted advisor, steps softly into the firelight. He is less a warrior and more a scholar, his face a web of fine lines etched by decades of study and quiet concern. He carries 2 clay cups of mulled wine, the steam rising from them smelling of honey and cloves. He sets one before you without a word, his presence a comforting counterpoint to the lonely weight of the crown. It was he who guided you towards your new faith, who taught you the letters and stories of a world beyond these northern forests, who showed you a vision of a single God, a single truth, a single, unified kingdom under a Christian king. She is still unmarried, my lord, he says softly, his gaze falling upon the pale northern expanse on the map. He does not need to say her name, Queen Sigrid, a name that carries the hard, flinty sound of the north itself. She rules in her own right, inheriting the throne from her father, a famously stubborn pagan who waged war with a ferocity that is still spoken of in whispers around your hearth fires. She is his daughter in spirit as well as blood, they say. Proud, shrewd, and fiercely protective of her people and their ancient ways. An alliance by marriage is the most logical move. It is the cornerstone of statecraft, the practice of turning potential enemies into wary family. A wedding ring, can be a stronger deterrent than a fortress wall. The political benefits are undeniable. Uniting your 2 realms would create a northern powerhouse, a bulwark against the feuding warlords to the south and the seafaring raiders who harass your coasts. Trade would flourish, a single currency, a single set of laws. It is a grand, beautiful project, a vision of order imposed upon a chaotic world. And in your mind, the vision does not stop at earthly matters. You see this as more than a mere political merger. It is a divine opportunity, a sacred mission. You will not just be marrying a queen. You will be saving a soul, and through her, an entire kingdom. You take a sip of the warm wine, the sweetness of it filling your mouth. In your mind's eye, you can already see it. The grand conversion. You picture her, proud Sigrid, kneeling before your priest, the holy water glistening on her brow. You imagine the gratitude in her eyes, a look of profound reverence for the man who brought her out of the darkness of her superstitions. and into the light of truth. After her would come her chieftains, then her people, a great flock coming into the fold. It's a pleasing daydream. You imagine them tearing down their sacred groves, the ones where, as you've heard, priests interpret the snorting of consecrated horses to divine the future. A ridiculous and profoundly unsanitary practice, in your opinion. Where their pagan altars once stood, you will fund the construction of a church, its stone spire pointing to the one true heaven. Your advisor watches you, his expression carefully neutral. Her commitment to the old gods is strong, my lord. Her people revere her for it. It is the gentlest of warnings, a subtle tap on the brakes you have no intention of applying. You know what he is saying. Tread carefully. Politics first, proselytizing second. But your heart, burning with the bright, clean fire of a new convert, disagrees. What is the point of earthly power, if not to serve a divine purpose? You are God's chosen instrument, and this is the task he has set before you. Historians still argue whether kings of your era adopted the cross for spiritual salvation, or for the sophisticated administrative and diplomatic tools the church offered. You are quite certain there is no distinction. Your God is a God of order, of progress, of victory. To embrace him is to embrace success itself. Your very presence on this throne is proof enough of that. Remembering the oddities of other cultures, like the crocodile dung sunscreen you once read about in an old southern text, only strengthens your resolve. The world is filled with such strange, misguided practices. Your mission is to bring clarity, reason, and proper worship to your corner of it, starting with the North. The potential for her to be offended by such a proposal seems unlikely. Why would anyone choose to remain in ignorance when offered enlightenment? You are offering her a better crown, a better God, a better future. Surely, she will see the magnificent logic of it all. It is not an ultimatum. It is a gift. She will see the truth. You say with a placid confidence that feels absolute. When a person is shown the light, they do not choose to remain in a dark room. The old priest gives a slow, almost imperceptible nod, a diplomat's gesture that concedes the point, without endorsing the certainty behind it. He knows your zeal is both your greatest strength and your most significant vulnerability. It is the engine that drives your ambition, but it also blinds you to the complexities of the human heart, to the simple, stubborn fact. The people cling to their own stories, their own gods, their own ways of being, not because they are ignorant, but because they are theirs. You look back at the map. The border between your lands no longer looks like a barrier. It looks like a seam waiting to be stitched together. Send envoys, you command, your voice resonating with a newfound authority in the quiet hall. Inform Queen Sigrid that I propose a meeting, a neutral town on the border. We will speak of an alliance. We will speak of the future of the North. The advisor bows his head. And what message should they carry of your intentions? What foundation should they lay for this talk? You give him a serene smile, the smile of a man who feels the hand of destiny resting comfortably on his shoulder. Tell her, you say, that I wish to offer her a partnership that will secure her kingdom in this world and her soul in the next. It sounds noble. It sounds generous. It is, you believe, the most magnificent offer she will ever receive. You have no doubt she will be eagerly awaiting your arrival. The journey begins not with a trumpet blast, but with the quiet, organized bustle of a household on the move. Your entire court, it seems, has been packed into wagons and onto horseback, a river of humanity and possessions flowing out from your capital city. You ride at its head, astride a powerful white charger, its harness decorated with polished silver studs that jingle softly with every step. The crisp morning air feels clean and full of promise, a tangible manifestation of your optimism. Behind you stretches a long procession, knights in their mail, their colorful banners snapping in the breeze. Your sour-faced treasurer, already worrying about the cost of all this. Wagons laden with chests of clothes, diplomatic gifts, and enough food and wine to host a feast worthy of two kingdoms. It is the era's equivalent of a deluxe travel package, designed to project an image of effortless power and wealth. You feel a serene sense of purpose. This is not a march to war, but a pilgrimage of peace. Your old advisor rides beside you, his smaller, grayer horse, a modest contrast to your own. He is quiet, as usual, his eyes scanning the road ahead. You, however, feel talkative, buoyed by the righteousness of your mission. You speak to him of your plans, not just for the alliance, but for the soul of the North. You describe the church you will build in Sigrid's capital, the scriptorium you will fund, the light of literacy and scripture you will bring to her people. He listens patiently, nodding in all the right places, his expression unreadable. His silence is a canvas onto which you can project your own certainty. The road is not a road, in the modern sense. It's a wide, muddy track, a scar across the landscape carved by centuries of wagon wheels and trudging feet. Progress is slow. The heavy supply wagons frequently get stuck in muddy ruts, requiring teams of sweating men and oxen to haul them free with a chorus of curses and strained groans. You imagine a future of proper, stone-laid king's highways connecting your two unified lands. And for a moment you feel a surge of affection for the administrative efficiencies of the southern empires. A good road system, you muse, is probably a sign of piety. As the days pass, the landscape begins to change. The gentle, rolling fields of your kingdom give way to a more rugged terrain. The forests grow darker and denser, the trees taller and older. You feel as though you are riding into the past, into the very heart of the ancient pagan world you are so eager to transform. At night, you camp in fortified clearings. The knights form a perimeter, while enormous bonfires are lit, their flames pushing back the immense, watching darkness of the woods. Around the fire, your courtiers talk in hushed tones, their usual frivolous chatter replaced by a nervous respect for the primeval forest. You, however, feel no fear. You feel like a lantern bearer, stepping into a cellar, confident in the power of your flame. You use the long hours of travel to mentally rehearse your conversation with Sigrid. It plays out in your mind like a perfectly scripted scene. You will be gracious, but firm. You will lay out the political benefits of the Union with irrefutable logic. Then, at the pinnacle of your argument, you will introduce the spiritual dimension. You won't demand, you will invite. You won't threaten, you will illuminate. You imagine yourself explaining the simple, elegant truth of your faith, dismantling her pagan superstitions not with contempt, but with gentle, unassailable reason. It will be less of a negotiation and more of a spiritual unveiling. Her acceptance in these daydreams is a foregone conclusion. How could it not be? Your advisor interrupts one of these mental dress rehearsals. The border is a day's ride from here, my lord, he says, pointing to a distant line of hills. Her party has already arrived in the town. They sent a scout to meet us. News of her punctuality pleases you. She is eager, as expected. A good sign, you reply, smiling. It shows she is as serious about this as we are. Your advisor just coughs into his hand, a little dry sound that might mean anything. You are entering a different sphere of influence now. The people you pass on the track are her subjects. They watch your grand procession with a guarded curiosity. Their faces hard and weathered. They look different from your own people, taller, paler. Their eyes a startling shade of gray or blue. They are the people you have come to save. Finally, you crest a hill and see it below you. The town. It's a drab affair. Really. A collection of wooden buildings clustered together, surrounded by a modest wooden palisade. It has the distinct air of a place that belongs to no one and everyone. A place of trade and temporary lodging, built more for function than for beauty. A thin plume of smoke rises from the chimney of the central feasting hall. As you begin your descent, a party of riders emerges from the town gate to greet you. They are Sigrid's warriors, her royal guard. They are large men, dressed in bearskin and leather, carrying heavy, double-headed axes. They do not look like men who are eager to have their sacred groves torn down. They halt a respectful distance away, and their leader, a man with a beard braided into 4 distinct plaits, dips his banner in greeting. It is a polite, formal reception, but underneath it, you feel a current of tension. You are 2 predators meeting on neutral ground, circling each other, smelling the air. You are escorted into the town, the streets of which are little more than muddy lanes between the houses. Her people line the path, their faces blank. This is a crucial moment for image management. You sit up straighter in your saddle, adopting an expression of kingly benevolence. Your advisor mutters to you, so softly only you can hear. Remember, my lord, she is a queen, not just a woman. Historians still debate whether queens like Sigrid were truly sovereign rulers or merely figureheads for powerful male relatives, but no one debates her pride. It's a valid point, you suppose. She holds power, and she will expect it to be acknowledged. You will, of course, acknowledge it. You will simply offer her an even greater power, a higher authority to whom she can be subject. You are led not to her, but to a separate lodging, a longhouse almost as grand as the feasting hall, hastily prepared for you and your inner circle. It is a sign of respect, affording you privacy to prepare. Servants bring hot water for washing, fresh clothes, and flagons of the local ale, which tastes suspiciously of sour grapes. It is all very civil, very proper. The first meeting will be at the feast tonight, a public affair, in front of all the chief nobles from both courts. The real negotiations will happen later, in private. Tonight is for toasts, pleasantries, and sizing each other up. As you wash the dust of the road from your face, you feel a final surge of exhilarating confidence. The stage is set. The audience is gathered. Your great work is about to begin. You feel perfectly, blissfully, ready. The great feasting hall is a cavern of wood and smoke. 2 long hearths run down its center, spitting sparks and casting a warm, flickering light that dances across the heavy roof timbers. The air is thick with the smells of roasting meat, wood smoke, sweat, and spilled ale. It's a loud, boisterous, masculine space. The combined energies of 2 rival courts, trying to out-celebrate each other. You sit at the high table, on a heavy carved chair that serves as a temporary throne. The feasting hall is a neutral space, but the side you occupy feels distinctly yours. Your banners hang behind you, and your knights and nobles are arrayed down the long table to your right. A sea of familiar faces. Opposite them sit Sigrid's people. They are, you notice, much like their honor guard, large, confident, and dressed in darker, more rustic finery of wool and fur. The ale is flowing freely, and the volume is rising steadily. Then, a hush falls over the hall. The great doors at the far end swing open, and she enters. Queen Sigrid. You had prepared yourself for this moment, but the reality of her presence is still arresting. She is taller than you expected, with a proud, straight-backed posture that commands attention without demanding it. Her hair is the color of wheat, elaborately braided and coiled, woven with threads of silver. Her eyes, even from this distance, are a startling, intense blue. She wears a simple but elegant gown of deep green wool, cinched at the waist with a belt of finely wrought silver plaques. She does not radiate warmth. She radiates power, a quiet, self-contained authority that is utterly different from your own demonstrative, proselytizing zeal. Your advisor, you realize with a flash of insight, was understating the matter. She is, every inch, a queen. She walks the length of the hall, her gaze sweeping over the assembled nobles. She nods to her own chieftains, then offers you a cool, appraising look. It is not hostile, but it is not friendly either. It is the look of a master jeweler examining a stone to see if it is worthy of its setting. She takes her seat in the throne-like chair opposite you, and the feast officially begins. The formalities are observed. Servants scurry forth with platters of food, whole roasted pigs, glistening with fat, joints of venison, dark and rich, baked fish stuffed with herbs. Musicians in a corner begin to play a tune on pipes and a small harp, a melancholic, repetitive melody that is mostly lost in the din. The conversation is, at first, stilted. You make polite inquiries about her journey. She gives you short, direct answers. You offer toasts to the hospitality of the town, to the bounty of the harvest, to future friendship. Each toast is met with a thunderous roar of skål from her side of the hall and a slightly more restrained cheer from yours. It feels less like a dinner party and more like a carefully refereed sporting event. As you eat, you study her. She comports herself with an impressive dignity, skillfully carving her own meat with a small, sharp knife from her belt. She speaks in low tones with the burly, four-braided chieftain beside her, sharing a brief, dry smile at something he says. There is an ease between her and her people, a rapport that you, in your zealous certainty, have never quite managed to cultivate with your own. You know you should be building a foundation of mutual respect, discussing matters of trade routes and border disputes, the kind of practical statecraft that would reassure her of your sound judgment. But your missionary impulse is a growing pressure inside you. Every moment you spend on these earthly pleasantries feels like a moment wasted. You see the pagan symbols on her warriors' arm rings. You hear the unfamiliar names of the gods they invoke in their rowdier toasts, and you feel the familiar impatience welling up. You must bring the conversation around. You must begin the great work. Your lands are beautiful, but harsh. You begin, raising your voice slightly to be heard over the noise. It must be a difficult life for your people, wresting a living from those mountains and dark forests. She turns her gaze back to you, her expression unreadable. My people are strong, she says simply. The North forges them. It does not break them. It is a deft parry. She has turned your implied pity into a statement of pride. Strength is a great virtue, you concede, giving her your most beatific, kingly smile. But a king must offer his people more than strength. He must offer them truth. This is it, the pivot. You can feel your own advisor tense beside you. Sigrid's eyebrow raises, just a fraction. Truth? She asks, her voice cool and clear. What truth do you believe my people lack, my lord? The opening has been given. You lean forward, your voice dropping to a more sincere, confidential tone, as if you are sharing a wonderful secret. The highest truth. The knowledge of the one God, who made all of us, you and I, whose divine order gives meaning to our rule. You then proceed to deliver the speech you rehearsed so many times on the road. You speak of light and darkness, of salvation and ignorance. You speak of her gods as woodland sprites and shadowy demons, misguided remnants of a more primitive age. You don't say it with scorn. You say it with a kind of gentle, pedantic condescension, the tone of a teacher explaining a simple concept to a very slow student. You believe you are being enlightening. You believe you are being persuasive. A deep silence has fallen over the feasting hall. The musicians have stopped playing. Everyone is listening. Sigrid hears you out completely, without interruption. Her face remains a mask of regal composure, but you see a dangerous light beginning to kindle in the depths of her blue eyes. When you finish your grand, magnanimous offer to trade her faith for yours as a precondition of marriage, is quiet for a long moment. She takes a slow sip of her wine. So, she finally says, setting the cup down with a soft click, your proposal is this. I am to abandon the faith of my ancestors, the gods who have protected my people for 1,000 years. I am to tell them that their entire world is a lie, and, in exchange for this betrayal, I will receive the honor of marrying you. Her sarcasm is so sharp, so polished, it takes you a moment to even feel the sting. You open your mouth to explain further, to clarify that she is misunderstanding the magnificent gift you are offering. But before you can speak, you decide to punctuate your point. You need a metaphor, something to make her see the absurdity of her position, and in that fatal moment of hubris, you think you've found the perfect one. A little joke to lighten the mood and demonstrate her folly. "I have no desire," you say, a smug little smile playing on your lips, "to marry an old heathen hag with the snout of a dog." For a heartbeat, there is absolute, stunned silence. You think, perhaps, they have not heard you correctly. You've just used a common, if crude, regional insult for a particularly stubborn pagan. It was meant to be illustrative, hyperbolic, but you have not said it to one of your courtiers in a private jest. You have said it in a hall full of 2 kingdoms' nobility, directly to a queen. The 4-braided chieftain beside her slowly gets to his feet, his hand tightening on the axe at his belt. Every warrior on her side of the hall is staring at you with a look of murderous disbelief. The atmosphere has gone from tense to volatile in the space of a single catastrophic sentence. Sigrid herself does not move. The dangerous light in her eyes has become an icy fire. She rises from her chair with a slow, deliberate grace, and her voice, when she speaks, is no longer cold. It is glacial. "This may cost you your life," she says, not as a threat, but as a simple statement of fact. The alliance is not just over. You have just declared a war. The aftermath of your joke is not the explosive violence you might have expected. It is something far colder, far more humiliating. Queen Sigrid does not order her chieftain to part your head from your shoulders, though the man clearly aches to do so. Instead, she holds up a single, slender hand, and he subsides, his jaw tight with fury. Her control over her court is absolute. She turns that glacial gaze upon you, a look that strips away your crown, your title, and your self-satisfied piety, leaving you feeling like a foolish, chattering boy. "My lord," she says, her voice ringing with a calm, lethal clarity in the silent hall, "you have wasted a journey, and you have wasted my time. We have nothing further to discuss." With that, she turns, not in a fury, but with a deliberate, unhurried grace, and sweeps from the hall. Her entire retinue rises as one, and follows her, a silent river of fur and steel flowing out the great doors, leaving you and your court sitting alone in the suddenly vast and empty space. The feast is over. The silence that remains is thick with your failure. Your knights and nobles stare at their plates, into their cups, anywhere but at you. Your old advisor beside you has his eyes closed, as if in silent prayer, or perhaps just profound despair. You have not just failed to secure an alliance. You have made a powerful, implacable enemy, and you have done it in the most public and spectacularly clumsy way imaginable. The journey home is the grim opposite of the hopeful procession that brought you here. The banners now seem to droop with shame. The knights ride with their heads lowered, their grand finery looking like cheap costumes. You ride in silence, the memory of her quiet, dismissive departure playing over and over in your mind. The serene confidence you felt has evaporated, replaced by a churning mixture of anger and humiliation. Anger at her for not seeing the wisdom of your offer, and a deeper, gnawing humiliation at your own catastrophic miscalculation. You had intended to be a beacon of enlightenment. Instead, you have been a buffoon. Your performance improvement plan, you suspect, will involve a great deal of solitary contemplation. Years pass. You throw yourself into ruling your own kingdom with a desperate, almost manic energy. You build churches, you reform laws, you fight small, successful wars against the squabbling lords on your southern border. You try to build the legacy of stone you dreamed of, hoping the weight of your accomplishments will be enough to bury the memory of that disastrous feast. You hear whispers from the north. Queen Sigrid, they say, remains unmarried. For a time, You allow yourself a flicker of hope. Perhaps she will reconsider. Perhaps she will realize the political necessity of your alliance outweighs the sting of a single poorly chosen insult. You have misjudged the depth of a queen's pride. The news, when it comes, is delivered by a shaken messenger, his horse lathered from a hard ride. It is not what you expect. Sigrid has forged a new alliance, but not through her own marriage. With a patient, strategic brilliance you are forced to admire, she has brokered a marriage between two of your most powerful neighbors, the king of the Danes, a shrewd old sea wolf with a vast fleet, and the king of the Swedes, your ambitious and often troublesome eastern rival. The bride is a Danish princess. The groom is the Swedish king, and the godmother of this new, terrifying union, Queen Sigrid. She has spent years patiently weaving together the threads of their shared ambitions and their mutual resentment of your growing power. Historians still debate whether Sigrid's actions were driven by personal vengeance or pure political pragmatism. But from where you stand, it feels deeply, profoundly personal. She has not just rejected you, she has built a coalition against you. The map on your table now looks very different. Your kingdom is no longer a green heartland poised to expand. It is an island, caught between three powerful, united forces. The wild north of Sigrid, the fleets of the Danes, and the armies of the Swedes. You have been outmaneuvered, outplayed. Your zeal has built you a stone church, but her patient revenge has built you a cage. Remembering the peacocks you heard about in another story seems fitting. You, in your arrogance, saw Sigrid as an exotic creature to be captured and tamed for your own glory. But she was no decorative bird. She was a falcon, and you foolishly showed her your wrist. Now she has flown to other masters, and together they are gathering for the hunt. The final part of your legacy is now clear. You will have a great war, not the glorious crusade of conversion you had envisioned, but a desperate struggle for survival. And you know, with a chilling certainty, that somewhere in her northern fastness, sitting by her own fire, Queen Sigrid the Proud is well aware of this, and she is content to wait. She is a woman who understands that revenge, much like statecraft, is a dish best served cold. You look at the map of your shrinking world, the noose of her diplomacy tightening around you. The joke, you finally realize, was always on you. Your legacy will not be one of enlightenment, but a cautionary tale, a footnote in history about a king whose grand vision for the future was undone by a single, terrible, alliance-shattering insult. The secret thoughts of a king's throne. Your first memory is of the sun. It is not a memory of sight, for you have no eyes. It is a memory of warmth, a slow, patient heat that soaks into your northern side in the morning and your southern side in the afternoon. For centuries, this is how you mark the day. Your existence is a slow, cyclical conversation with the world. You feel the frantic scramble of a squirrel's claws on your bark, the gentle weight of a hawk resting on a high branch, the industrious tickle of insects burrowing into your deadwood. The wind is a familiar voice, a whisper through your summer leaves, a low howl through your bare winter branches. Time is not measured in hours or days, but in rings, each one a silent testament to a year of quiet, rooted life. You are an oak, vast, ancient, and deeply anchored in the cool, damp earth of the forest. Your roots are a secret map of the ground beneath, a mirror image of the tangled canopy you hold up to the sky. You are a landmark, a patriarch. The forest has grown and shifted around you, but you have remained. You have tasted lightning and felt the scorching kiss of a forest fire. You have sheltered generations of deer from the rain and provided acorns for countless generations of boar. You are less a single being and more a silent, living community. And you have known nothing but this slow, patient, rooted peace. Then come the men. You have felt them before, fleeting presences moving through your forest. They are erratic, noisy creatures, always in a hurry, always on their way somewhere else. They smell of sweat and iron and cooked meat, but this time is different. They do not pass by. They stop at your base. They are small, so small, but their intent is a palpable thing, a sharp hum of purpose that disturbs the quiet air. They walk around you, patting your trunk, their soft hands a strange sensation against your rough bark. They speak to each other in a series of clipped, guttural sounds, and though you do not understand words, you understand the tone. It is a tone of appraisal, of decision. The sound comes first, a sharp, angry ringing that is utterly alien to the forest symphony of whispers and chirps. It is the sound of one of them rubbing a stone against a piece of iron. They are sharpening their purpose. And then comes the bite. It is not the grand, explosive crack of a lightning strike, or the slow rot of fungus. It is a sharp, repetitive, shockingly cold wound. A splintering intrusion deep into the layers of your life. The first splinter, it is a new sensation, and an unpleasant one. An insult to the slow, sacred integrity of your being. Another man joins the first, and they find a rhythm. Their grunts and the thud of their axes creating a grim percussion that echoes through the trees. For creatures in such a hurry, they are terribly inefficient, you think. The beaver can fell a respectable sapling in a fraction of the time, and with much less complaining. Slowly, agonizingly, they carve a wedge out of your soul. The wound is vast, a gaping mouth in your base. You feel a new and terrifying imbalance. Your connection to the earth, the source of your strength and your identity for half a millennium, begins to feel tenuous. There is a great groaning creak, a sound that comes from your very heartwood. And then, for the first time in your long life, you begin to fall. The sky cartwheels. The familiar branches of your neighbors become a green blur. The sensation is one of profound vertigo, a severing. You, who were a fixed point in a turning world, are now tumbling through it. The final impact is a cataclysmic shudder that jars every fiber of your being. And then, silence. A different kind of silence. Not the living quiet of the forest, but the dead, muffled quiet of the fallen. You lie on the ground, your great length a testament to your age, your leaves already beginning to wilt. The unmaking continues. The men, with their noisy axes, strip you of your branches. You are denuded, your complex architecture reduced to a single massive log. Ropes as thick as snakes are looped around you, and a team of straining oxen drags you from your home. The journey is a long, humiliating procession of bumps and scrapes. You are dragged through the mud and across fields, leaving a great trench in the earth behind you. You arrive in a place that smells of sawdust and beeswax and human endeavor. A workshop. Here, the process of transformation begins. They hew you into shape with adzes, shaving away your roundness, imposing a new and unfamiliar geometry upon you. The sawdust, the fine powder of your former self coats everything. Master craftsmen, members of a powerful and respected guild, take over. The significance of English oak, for building items of status for ships, for great halls, for furniture meant to convey power was paramount. You were not chosen by accident. You were chosen for your strength and your endurance. The head craftsman is a quiet, intense man. He marks your surface with charcoal, sketching out a destiny you cannot comprehend. Historians still argue whether master craftsmen of your era were seen as respected artists in their own right, or merely as anonymous laborers in service to a royal patron. Watching this man work, seeing the deep concentration in his eyes as he selects a specific chisel, you feel he is an artist, a creator in his own right, though his medium happens to be your corpse. He begins to carve. Strange shapes emerge from your body. The legs of your new form are given the claws of a lion. The armrests are decorated with snarling beasts. He gives you a high back, and at its pinnacle, he carves the face of a great lion, the symbol of the king he serves. It is meant to be fearsome, but If you're honest with your woody self, the lion's expression looks less like a roar and more like a look of mild, continuous surprise. Days bleed into weeks. You are chiseled, sanded, and smoothed. The raw, splintered surfaces become as placid as still water. Finally, they begin to polish you. They rub you with a mixture of beeswax and turpentine, and a strange, dark red resin they call dragon's blood. It is not from a dragon. Of course, that would be ridiculous. It is the sap of a rare tree from a faraway land. But its name speaks to the way these men see the world, a place still infused with myth and wonder. It's an odder human custom than even that crocodile dung sunscreen you once heard a traveler muttering about. The resin gives your surface a deep, rich, blood-red glow. You are no longer an oak tree. You have been unmade, and now you have been remade. You are a throne, massive, solid, and silent. You are placed in the center of the great hall, a fixed point once more, ready to begin your new, much stranger life. Your new life begins in silence, in the vast, echoing space of the great hall. You are the center of attention, yet you do nothing. You simply are. Men and women walk around you, admiring the craftsmanship, their fingers tracing the lines of the snarling beasts on your arms. They comment on the deep, lustrous shine of your finish, the color of old blood and stored sunlight. For a time, you are merely a piece of furniture, an object of art. Then comes the first ceremony, the coronation. The man who sits upon you for the first time is the one you were made for, the king. You feel his weight as a profound pressure, a settling into the purpose for which you were unmade and remade. He is a heavy man, both in body and in spirit. Years of feasting and command have given him a physical gravity that sinks deep into your frame. The fine velvet of his robes is soft but dense against your back, a strange, manufactured texture after a lifetime of feeling only bark and leaves. His hands rest upon your armrests, one on each of the surprised-looking lions. His fingers are thick, adorned with heavy gold rings set with uncut gemstones. You feel the cold, hard facets of a ruby pressing into the grain of your wood, a steady, unyielding pressure. This king does not fidget. He sits with the solid, rooted certainty of a mountain. Your existence becomes a series of long, slow moments of stillness, punctuated by the life of the court that swirls around you. You are the anchor point of the entire room. From your fixed perspective, you witness the endless human drama. Ambassadors from distant lands are brought before you. They bow low, their own fine silks rustling on the stone floor, their foreign words a strange music in the hall. The presentation of credentials has always been a key part of international diplomacy, a ritual of acknowledging sovereignty. You don't understand the words, but you understand the posture, the deep bow, the averted eyes, the careful offering of a gift, and you feel the king's response, not through sight, but as a deep rumble in his chest that vibrates through you as he speaks. He is power personified, and you are the seat of that power. You grow accustomed to this first king. You learn the particular weight of his presence, the feel of his authority. And then, one day, he no longer comes. The hall is draped in black cloth that absorbs the light and the sound. Another man is crowned, his son. This one is different. The weight that settles on you is lighter, less assured. His hands, when they rest on your arms, are clammy and cool. He fidgets, endlessly. His fingers tap out nervous rhythms on the lion heads, a frantic, unceasing patter. He shifts his weight from side to side, a constant, restless motion. Where his father was a mountain, this one is a willow in a storm. He wears his power like an ill-fitting garment, and you feel his anxiety in every nervous tremor that travels through your frame. This new king is a man riddled with doubt. You feel him lean forward when a stern-faced general speaks, then lean back when a smooth-tongued courtier offers a different opinion. He is swayed by the last voice he hears. It would be comical if it weren't so deeply felt. You feel his unease as your own, a subtle vibration of uncertainty. He often wears a large amulet around his neck, and a prominent ring made not of gold but of silver, set with a large polished stone of deep blue flecked with gold lapis lazuli. This was a stone prized for its beauty, but also, for some, for its perceived connection to the heavens. It was believed to bring wisdom and ward off melancholy, judging by the damp, nervous energy you feel from him day after day. Its effects seem to be minimal. The human capacity for hope in the face of inanimate geology is truly something to behold. With this king comes a fool, a man dressed in motley, with bells on his hat that jingle with every step. Historians still debate whether the court fool was merely an entertainer, a licensed clown, or a uniquely privileged political advisor, capable of speaking truth to power without fear of retribution. This fool is the only person in the entire court who can still the king's nervous energy. He will stand beside you, offering a sharp-witted comment or a simple jest, and you will feel the king's anxious tapping cease for a moment. A sigh will shudder through his body, a release of tension that you feel as a brief, welcome peace in your wooden bones. You, the throne, become the silent audience to their strange, intimate relationship. The anxious king and the only man who can make him laugh. Time turns. The nervous king is laid to rest, and then comes the boy. The great doors swing open, and a child, no more than 10 years old, is led to you by a stern man in dark robes regent. They must place a series of thick cushions upon your seat, so that he may see over your lion-headed arms. When he sits, his weight is almost negligible. It is like feeling a fledgling birdland, where a hawk used to perch. His feet, in their soft leather shoes, dangle far above the floor. His small hands grip the arms of your seat not for power, but for balance. You feel the constant, low-level thrum of a child's boredom, mixed with a healthy dose of fear. The crown placed on his head is too big, threatening to slide down over his eyes. The velvet robes weigh more than he does. He's a vessel, a symbol, and everyone knows it. The real power stands beside you, the regent, a man whose quiet confidence feels more like your first king than this child does. It is the regent who speaks, who receives petitions, who nods to the generals. The boy just sits, occasionally kicking his dangling feet in a soft, rhythmic patter against your solid front. During long, tedious audiences, you can feel his attention drift away. He is probably thinking about his dog, or the wooden soldiers in his playroom. A mainstream historical fact is that the regency councils that governed for child monarchs were often hotbeds of political intrigue. Historians still debate the extent to which these councils truly acted in the king's interest, or were merely using the child's authority as a mask for their own ambition. From your vantage point, feeling the regent's solid, unmoving presence and the boy's fluttering inattention, it is not a difficult question to answer. You are also witness to one of the era's stranger customs. The boy king is not allowed to be physically punished. He is, after all, the anointed of God. So he has been given a whipping boy, a young nobleman's son who is his constant companion. When the king makes an error in his lessons or misbehaves, it is this other boy who is taken away and disciplined. You feel the king flinch on his cushions when he hears the distant cries. It is a lesson in power and consequence, delivered through a very peculiar and likely deeply confusing proxy. You feel his shame, a hot, prickly sensation, even though it is not his skin that smarts. But the boy grows. Slowly, imperceptibly at first, his weight increases. The cushions become thinner, and then one day, they are gone altogether. His feet touch the floor. His hands rest on your arms with a new, tentative authority. The restless energy of childhood gives way to the sullen seriousness of adolescence. And one day, he speaks for himself. He dismisses the regent with a quiet command that shocks the court, and a new weight settles on you. He is a king in his own right now, and his presence is a complex mixture of all who came before him. He has his grandfather's stubborn pride, his father's lingering anxiety, and a unique, cold caution that is entirely his own. This procession of humanity is your life now. You hold them, all the heavy, the nervous, the young. Each leaves an impression, a faint memory imprinted upon your very grain, a story of weight and worry that only you can feel. You are no longer just an object. You are a chronicle. Section 3. The day ends. The Great Hall. A space that was once a vibrant ecosystem of noise, color, and intrigue, slowly empties. Petitioners, courtiers, guards, and servants recede like a tide, their footsteps echoing on the stone flags until the heavy oak doors boom shut, leaving behind a profound and resonant silence. The last servant extinguishes most of the torches, leaving only a few to burn in their wall sconces, and the deep orange glow of the embers in the central hearth. The air grows cool. Dust motes, invisible in the chaos of the day, now drift languidly in the sparse columns of light. It is in this quiet, in this suspended time between day and night, that your true purpose begins. You are no longer a stage for public power. You become a private confessional. The king often returns. Not the boy whose feet once dangled high above the floor, but the man he has become. He walks back into the hall alone, his footsteps heavier now, slower. He sits upon you not with the formal posture of majesty, but with the deep, bone-weary slump of a man carrying an impossible burden. He is no longer performing. There is no one to see him. And you, in your silent, wooden way, feel the difference. The weight is the same, but its quality has changed. It is the weight of worry. His hands, no longer small and tentative, rest on your lion-headed arms. The wood worn smooth and dark by his father's and grandfather's hands before him. His fingers trace the grain, a slow, repetitive motion, a silent prayer, a nervous habit, an unconscious search for solidity in a world that feels increasingly fluid and treacherous. This is when the whispers happen. Sometimes he is not alone. An advisor, often the son of the old regent who once stood beside you, will enter the hall like a shadow. They speak in low murmurs that the vast, empty space seems to drink. You do not hear words, but you feel their vibrations. You feel the king lean to his left, his ear inclined toward the advisor's mouth. You feel the slight pressure of the man's hand on your high back, a gesture of familiarity and confidence that no one would dare in the full light of day. They are speaking of plots, of betrayals. The king's body, which had been slumped in weary repose, grows taut, the muscles in his back tense. A rigidity, you feel, has a hardening pressure against your own wooden spine. This is the unseen machinery of the state. It's a well-known historical fact that a medieval court was a viper's nest of factionalism, where great families battled for influence, and a king had to be a master of balancing these competing ambitions to survive. You feel this constant, perilous balancing act in the king's very sinews. A deep sigh, a shift of weight to one side, might signify a decision that will doom one family and elevate another. One night, the queen comes. She moves with a soft rustle of silk. She does not speak. She simply stands behind you and places her hands on her husband's shoulders. You feel the faint, gentle pressure of her touch transmitted through his body. His posture softens instantly. A long, shuddering sigh escapes him, a sound of profound release that vibrates deep within you. It is a moment of pure, unguarded intimacy, a silent confession of fear, and a silent offering of comfort. For a few brief minutes, he is not a king, and she is not a queen. They are merely two people, holding on against the darkness. This, you feel, is a heavier secret than any whispered plot. His fears have a texture. When a messenger arrives with ill tidings from a rebellious border province, you feel the king's hand grip your arm so tightly that your ancient wood creaks in protest. The pressure is sharp, frantic. When a rival noble sends a gift that is both an offering of loyalty and a veiled threat, you feel the king's heart beating a frantic, panicked rhythm against your back. You, a stationary object, become the ultimate barometer of his anxiety. He also brings his physical frailties. One season, he is plagued by a sickness. His body feels hot against your wood, even in the cold hall. The court physician, a small, severe man who smells of dried herbs and condescension, is summoned. He speaks of an imbalance in the king's humors. The king, he declares, has an excess of choler or yellow bile, making him prone to anger and fever. You feel the king's weak protest, his exhausted submission. The prescription, as was often the case, is bloodletting. The physician makes a small, sharp cut on the king's arm. Afterward, when the king returns to you, his weight feels diminished, his presence strangely hollowed out. It is a peculiar fringe tidbit of their medical science, this belief that a man can be healed by being partially emptied. It strikes you as even less logical than that odd business with the crocodile dung sunscreen. Healing by subtraction seems profoundly counterintuitive. But the king's relief, though it stems from a place of weakness, is palpable. It's in these long, quiet nights that you sense the king grappling with the very nature of his power. Historians will one day argue whether rulers of his era truly believed in their divine right to rule as an unshakable article of faith, or if it was more a political tool, a convenient justification for their immense authority. You feel the truth is more complicated. You feel his moments of unwavering certainty, when he sits straight and solid, his pressure firm, a true believer. But you also feel the late-night moments of profound doubt, when his body slumps and his head bows, and his weight upon you is the weight of a single, terrified man, asking an unseen God why he was chosen for this unbearable task. The secret he keeps even from himself, but which he confesses to you without a word, is that he is not at all sure he is worthy. The weight of all these secrets, of all these kings, settles deep into your grain. You are no longer merely made of wood, you are made of memory. Section 4. The king who learned to rule, while his feet dangled from your seat, grows old. His weight becomes brittle, his movements slow and deliberate. The pressure he exerts is no longer that of a vital, anxious man, but something lighter, drier, a hollowed-out gourd rather than a taut wineskin. He sits on you now more out of habit than for any purpose of statecraft. The great hall is less a center of power and more a gilded cage for his infirmity. His hands, now spotted with age and swollen at the knuckles, rest gently on your lion arms, their grip almost weightless. You feel the tremor in them, a constant, faint vibration, the last, sputtering energy of a long reign. And then, one day, he sits on you no more. His son, the heir, is a different breed of man entirely. He is a product of a changing world. His tutors have been men of the new learning, men who speak of reason and rights, of parliaments and papers. He does not see you as the sacred heart of the kingdom. He sees you as a piece of old, overwrought furniture, an embarrassing relic from a more barbarous age. He sits on you only once during his coronation, and you feel his disdain in his posture. He is stiff, awkward, and impatient to be done with the ceremony. He prefers a simpler, more modern chair in a smaller, more private room. The age of spectacle, of power being performed in great open halls, is drawing to a close. Your time at the center of the world is ending. The dynasty, which seemed as ancient and as rooted as you once were in the forest, begins to crumble. There are shouts in the streets, the sounds of marching feet, and, one terrible afternoon, the sharp, percussive crackle of musket fire. It is a sound that feels even more alien to you than the first axe bite did, centuries ago. The great oak doors of the hall are thrown open, not for a petitioner or an ambassador, but for a mob. They are loud, angry, and they smell of ale and righteousness. They swarm around you, their faces turned up in awe and resentment. To them, you are not a witness or a chronicle. You are a symbol of everything they have come to tear down. One of them, a young man with fire in his eyes, climbs onto your seat. He doesn't sit. He stands, his muddy boots scratching the polished surface your kings had so carefully preserved. He raises a hammer in his hand and, for a moment, you feel the familiar dread of the blade. You expect to be unmade once more, this time into firewood and splinters. But another man, older, with the careful hands of a scholar, stops him. He argues, gesturing at your carved details. Speaking of history, of craftsmanship, the boy's destructive impulse gives way to the older man's reverence for the past. This debate between destroying the symbols of an old regime and preserving them as historical artifacts is a mainstream feature of nearly every revolution. You are saved, not by your sacred status, which has evaporated, but by your new, more secular value as a historical object. Your removal from the hall is a strange, undignified affair. You are pried from the stone dais where you have sat for generations. You are wrapped in rough canvas blankets and carted through the city on a simple wagon. The world outside the palace walls is a chaotic, noisy, bewildering place. After centuries of a fixed viewpoint, the rush of new sensations is overwhelming. Finally, you are brought to a large, cold building with high ceilings and an air of sterile quiet. It smells not of wood smoke and roasting meat, but of dust and preserving oils. It is a museum. You are given a new position against a blank white wall on a slightly raised platform. A small brass plaque is placed before you. Ropes of soft, red velvet are strung up to keep people from getting too close, from touching you. Your life, once defined by the intimate pressure of a single ruler, is now defined by the collective, distant gaze of 1,000 strangers. School children come, their faces bored, and their attention wandering, just like your boy king. Scholars stand before you for long stretches, their brows furrowed, making notes in small books. They analyze the carving style, debate the species of tree from which the dragon's blood resin was sourced, and speculate on the lives of the craftsmen who made you. The quirky, fringe theories about your past are now born in academic papers instead of a physician's diagnoses. One scholar might propose that a hidden compartment must exist in your base for storing relics, while another might argue that the surprisingly placid look on your main lion's face is evidence of a subtle, satirical critique of monarchy by the carver. It's all speculation. None of them can feel what you feel. They see an object. They do not feel the deep, cellular memory of the kings you held, the weight of the heavy king's certainty, the damp tremor of the nervous king's fear, the lingering shame of the boy who had a friend whipped in his stead, the secret pressure of the queen's comforting hand. Here, in the placid, climate-controlled silence of the museum, you finally have the peace to process it all. For centuries, you were a passive recipient of human anxiety and ambition. Now, you have entered a long, quiet period of contemplation. The memories, imprinted in your grain like the rings of your first life, are all you have left. There is a certain irony in your final state. You were built to signify absolute power, a single point of authority in a hierarchical world. You have survived to become a democratic artifact, your story belonging to everyone and no one, examined by all, but touched by none. You are no longer a throne. You are a memory, held in trust, and you find, in this new, quiet purpose, a strange sense of peace. Your work of holding up kings is done. Now, you simply hold their stories, and in the deep, ancient silence of your oak heart, you can finally rest.